Effective science perspectives on cancer control, strategically. Crafting a mutually beneficial. Rebecca A. Fair 1, Paige Green McDonald 1, and Lisa Feldman Barrett 2, 3-1 Basic Biobehavioral and Psychological Sciences Branch, Behavioral Research Program. 3 Department of Psych. Abstract. Cancer control research involves the conduct of basic and applied behavioral and social sciences to reduce cancer incidence, morbidity, and mortality, and improve quality of life. Given the importance of behavior in cancer control, fundamental research is necessary to identify and management behaviors. Cancer prevention, diagnosis, and treatment are often emotionally laden. As such, effective science research to elucidate questions related to basic phenomenological nature of emotion, stress, and mood is necessary to understand how cancer control can be hindered or facilitated by emotional experiences. To date, the intersection of basic effective science research and cancer control remains largely unexplored. The goal of this paper is to outline key questions in the cancer control research effective science discoveries. We also provide examples of ways in which basic effective discoveries could inform future cancer. Prevention and control research. These examples are not meant to be exhaustive or prescriptive, but instead are offered to generate creative thought about the promise of a cancer research context for answering basic effective science questions. Together, these examples provide a compelling argument for fostering collaborations between effective and cancer control scientists. Despite great scientific investment in cancer research, cancer remains a leading cause of mortality in the U.S. and other developed countries, accounting for approximately 25% of all deaths in the U.S. ACS 2014. Human behavior plays a central and well-established role in cancer risk and prevention, and in the management of cancer outcomes, Klein et al. 2014. Accordingly, cancer control science involves conducting basic and applied research in the behavioral, social, and population science to create or enhance interventions, independently or in combination with biomedical approaches, reduce cancer risk, incidence, morbidity, and mortality, and improve quality of life. Some examples of critical questions in cancer control relevant to behavioral or psychological science include: why do individuals engage in behaviors that increase the risk of cancer, and what intervention design can most effectively reduce those behaviors? Why? HHS Public Access. Author manuscript, available in PNC May 1st, 2016. Published in final edited format. Prospect Sci-Pol Sci, 2015 May, 10, 328 to 345. Joy 10.1177/1745691615576755. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Do individuals undergo cancer screening when it is not medically indicated, and how can we improve adherence to screening recommendations? How can shared decision-making be facilitated in the context of cancer treatment or transitions to end-of-life care? The answers to some of these questions can be found in effective science, or the scientific study of discrete emotions, example, fear, anger, happiness, as well as states such as stress and positive and negative moods. Historically, cancer has been considered a disease feared beyond all symptom and pain management, reactions such as anxiety, sadness, and anger, social and familial concerns, and existential questions about life and death, Holland, 2003. Moreover, cancer risk and preventive recommendations involve exceptional uncertainty and ambiguity, example, Niederdeck and Levy, 2007, which create highly effective psychological states, Baranin, Wilson, and Gilbert, 2009, Hahn, Moser, and Klein, 2006. Media depictions of cancer further exemplified, Niederdeck, Feller, Goldstein, and Cribble, 2010, potentially contributing to inaccurate beliefs about risk and mortality that are disproportionately driven by effect, Jensen, Scher, Brown, Jones, and Christie, 2013, Klein, Ferrer, Rapp, Kaufman, and Hahn, 2014. Thus, cancer prevention and control science can derive particular benefit from research on fundamental effective processes. The 4 critical questions in cancer control science: mental knowledge about effective processes, particularly when basic research considers cancer applications in its study design, i.e., use-inspired basic research, Stokes, 2005. Important and unanswered fundamental questions about the nature of effective phenomena range from the basic to the complex, and include the following exemplars: what neural processes generate and regulate emotions? and is the subjective experience of generation versus regulation really driven by different processes? How do complex emotional answers influence decision-making under uncertainty? What the psychological and neural processes by which emotions are communicated, perceived, and shared? Questions like these address the fundamental nature of affective processes and form the foundation of affective science. To date, the potential synergy between basic affective science and cancer control remains largely unexplored. Psychological scientists who focus on basic questions often discount cancer as a content area that is too applied to examine their research questions only involve cancer patients. However, the breadth of cancer control also encompasses risk and prevention behaviors in normal/healthy populations across the lifespan. Thus, hypotheses about the fundamental nature of affective states in healthy individuals, cancer patients, and those surviving and thriving for decades after cancer treatment are directly relevant to cancer control science. The goal of this paper is to sample key questions in the cancer control research domain to demonstrate its potential as a contextually rich and fertile area. Several examples exist that depict which basic effective discoveries could inform future cancer prevention and control research. The examples, highlighted below, are not meant to be exhaustive or prescriptive. Rather, they are offered to Ferrer et al. Page 2. Respect Psychol Sci. Author Manuscript. Available in PNC May 1st, 2016. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Generate examples of collaborative opportunities for effective science. The paper is organized around general categories of cancer research. 1. Cancer risk and prevention. 2. Cancer detection. And 3. Cancer treatment, survivorship, and palliative care. Each of these sections briefly describes the cancer control problem, and then presents related effective science research questions, organized by general categories of effective science topics or areas of inquiry. We then provide to all domains of cancer prevention and control research. Primary prevention. Key cancer control problems relevant to effective science. Preventing cancer before it occurs is of central importance to cancer control. In the U.S. and other economically developed countries, a substantial proportion of cancers could be prevented through behavior modification, American Cancer Society, 2014, an observation that has contributed to a national focus on 2012. Empirically supported risk factors for various types of cancer include behaviors such as smoking, poor energy balance, i.e., consuming more calories than are expended through physical activity, alcohol consumption, unprotected sun exposure, and artificial tanning. See Klein et al., 2014. An additional behavioral risk factor for cervical cancer is non-adherence to human papillomavirus, HPV, vaccination recommendations. Future 2 Study Group, 2007. Effective states influence many of these cancer risk behaviors. Example, Panetti, Bahar, and Berry, 2002, Bellisi. Al, 2014, Kelly, Masterman, and Young, 2011, Loxton, Daw, and Cahill, 2011, Ostapin and Brooks, 2011, Perkins et al., 2008, Zyrnowski, Brewer, and Weber, 2009. Despite the knowledge that effective processes contribute to cancer risk behaviors, little is known about the role of effect in the context et al., 2008, or decisions to engage in preventive behaviors, Connor and Norman, 1996. Cancer prevention interventions have targeted emotions such as fear and worry to some extent. Example, Cho and Salmon, 2006, Hall, French, and Marteau, 2009, and it is believed that affect and emotion hold a key to crafting persuasive health communications. Example, National Research Council, 2012. However, affect is often targeted imprecisely, using common sense rather than principles. As such, it is critical that we develop a better understanding of effective underpinnings of the behaviors that modulate cancer risk. Examining key questions of basic effective science within a cancer context. Effect as information. Individuals often use effect as information to help guide decisions, particularly when they are unaware of the real causes of effective changes. Example, Floor, Gasper, and Garvin, 2001, Schwartz, 2010. Thus, it is likely that decisions to engage in cancer by effect. Individuals may use effect about a cancer-related behavior as information about whether the behavior is good or bad, rather than systematically considering its potential to increase or reduce cancer risk. Lawton, Connor, and McEachin, 2009. Thus, Behaviors known to influence the risk of cancer are a fertile ground for examining basic questions about the nature of effect and how. Ferrer et al. Page 3. Prospect Cycol Sci. Author Manuscript. Available in PNC. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Effect facilitates behavioral decisions relevant to cancer prevention, including how do individuals use affective feelings as information to evaluate cancer-related behaviors? When is this most likely to occur, and for whom? For example, relatively low public awareness of HPV as a risk factor for cancer and the availability of vaccination as a preventive measure. Marlowe et al. For effective scientists to examine the temporal dynamics of how effect is used as information to guide decisions in a novel and ecologically valid context. Emotion regulation, cancer risk, and prevention behaviors are also a relevant context for research aimed at developing a better understanding of emotion regulatory processes. Social support, Betts and Cohn, 2011, Cognitive Reappraisal, or Changing the Way One Thinks About a Situation to Alter an Emotional Response, Poldrack, Wagner, Ochsner, and Gross. 2000 and Gross, 2007, and Instrumental Emotion Regulation, Tamir, Mitchell, and Gross, 2008, have been identified as effective means of directly or indirectly regulating negative emotion. Much remains to be learned about emotion regulation, including the resources needed to mitigate the experience of or overtly regulate negative effects, and the temporal dynamics of emotional responding, as discussed in Barrett, Wilson Mendenhall, and Barcelo, 2014. It is largely assumed that bodily sensations subjective affective states, such as stress or negative mood in response to hunger, example, Craig, 2002, Turtalbu et al., 2012. For review, see Barrett and Blitzmoro, 2009. This implies that cancer-related behaviors such as smoking, alcohol consumption, and overeating may be strategies for regulating negative effects related to disruptions of the body's homeostasis. Indeed, several leading frameworks for understanding food intake and tobacco use Bahar and Berry, 2002. Nicotine, in particular, may change neural circuitry and ability to adapt to negative emotional stimuli. Sincerkini et al., 2006. Gray and Critchley, 2007. Watkins, 2000. Suggesting that smoking to regulate effects may be self-perpetuating. A more comprehensive understanding of neural mechanisms underlying emotion regulation will shed light on why people choose maladaptive strategies and suggest routes for encouraging them. To the extent that links between glucose metabolism and stress or negative effects are influenced by social support and social threat, Dickerson, Gable, Irwin, Aziz, and Kemeny, 2009, this research also suggests ways that social regulation of effect can indirectly be leveraged in interventions to reduce the need for these other maladaptive strategies. Thus, cancer prevention is an ideal context to examine questions such as, what are the neural underpinnings of emotion regulation? What resources are necessary to make emotion and emotion regulatory processes unfold over time? Positive versus negative effects, benefits, detriments, and associations. Effective science has demonstrated that there are conditions under which negative effect is motivating versus maladaptive. In fact, in certain situations, individuals actually seek out negative affective experiences, such as in the instance when anger is perceived as a motivation to right a transgression. Example, Ford and Tamir, in Press. Tamir and Ford, in Press. In a Cancer. Ferrer et al. Page 4. Prospect Cycol Sci. Author Manuscript. Available in PNC May 1st, 2016. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Context. It is crucial. The decades-old question of whether context. It is crucial to avoid the folk belief that all negative emotion is harmful, and to better understand when stress behaviors. Nuances in positive effects and context may be important. Positive effect could be maladaptive when it stems from unrealistic expectations about cancer risk or ability to perform a cancer preventive behavior. As such, emotion regulatory goals are just as important in the cancer prevention context as our emotion regulatory strategies. Thus, cancer prevention is an ideal context to examine questions such as, when are negative affective experiences motivating and beneficial to an individual? When is positive effect? The decades-old question of whether positive and negative effects are opposites, most recently see Barrett and Blitzmoro, 2009, Norris et al., 2010, is also highly relevant to cancer-related behavioral decisions. Exercise, for example, can evoke physical discomfort and negative affective reactions while concurrently evoking positive effects attributable to feelings of empowerment or activation of reward processes. Ekakakis, 2009, Hall et al., 2002, Magnin et al., 2013. William, question in this context is, how are positive and negative effect related at the experiential, physiologic, and neural levels of analysis? Progress towards resolving the hurt associated with exercise-related cancer-preventive behaviors or the pleasures associated with cancer risk behaviors such as smoking or consumption of highly palatable but unhealthy foods. Affective, sensory, and perceptual processes. Similarly, the question about the relation between effective and, for example, individuals who are more sensitive to the bitter-tasting compound 6N-propylthiouracil, PROP, i.e., supertasters, Hayes et al., 2008, also experience more intense negative emotional responses to unpleasant or aversive stimuli, Mocht and Mueller, 2007. See also Mocht, 2008, Mocht, Hocht, and Saliuski, 2004, Mocht, Roth, and Eldring, 2002, Mocht and Simons, 2000, suggesting that those who experience more negative effects and stress may vegetables, which have higher concentrations of PROP, and more likely to be hedonic eaters. Studies designed to identify individual differences in other effectively laden sensory contexts, such as tobacco use, could shed light on individual differences associated with propensity towards cancer risk behaviors. Thus, cancer prevention is a context in which to ask, how does neural processing of effect relate to and interact with other psychological processes such as sensory perception and cognition? Affect and self-identity, affirming one's sense of self-integrity increases receptiveness to health communications, Harris and Napper, 2005, and effect can enhance or disrupt the process, leading to unintended resistance to such communications, Ferrer, Schmeely, Bergman, Harris, and Klein, 2012. Basic research to disentangle the psychological underpinnings of effect and self is necessary to better understand this interaction and develop health messages that are better matched to effective context. Emotional, which often involves presenting information linking risky behaviors to cancer threat in an attempt to target fear or worry. Example, Cho and Salmon, 2006, Hall et al., 2009. Such emotional appeals have varying success. Ferrer et al., page 5. Prospect Psychol Sci. Author manuscript. Available in PMC May 1st, 2016. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. In engaging the target emotion and motivating behavior change, depending on context and circumstances, see Peters, Reuter, and Co., 2012, Vant Reit and Reuter, 2011. Similarly, worry is inconsistently associated with protective health behaviors depending on its intensity, example Janis, 1967, and also interacts with more deliberative health cognitions, such as risk perception, example Ferrer, Portnoy, and Klein, 2013. Thus, addressing the following effective science question can help inform effective cancer interventions. How does effect contribute or relate to other psychological constructs? Example, self/social constructs. Cancer detection. Key cancer control problems relevant to effective science. Detection of cancer, also called secondary prevention, is crucial for cancer control because identifying cancer early can lead to better treatment outcomes and improved survival. Correct identification symptoms in cancer detection. However, adherence to screening recommendations is suboptimal, CDC, 2012. Moreover, maximal benefit of appropriate screening is realized only with the clinical follow-up of abnormal results, which remains a challenge to the Tate, Zapka, Taplin, Price, Kranos, and Yabrock, 2010. U.S. Preventive Services Task Force 1, USPSTF, recommends detection of cancer risk through screening via the Papa Nicolau USPSTF, 2009, low-dose helical lung computed tomography, CT, USPSTF, 2014, fecal occult blood test, FOBT, sigmoidoscopy, and colonoscopy, USPSTF, 2008. Decisions to postpone or forego ineffective methods of screening are important areas of focus for cancer researchers. When evidence does not support the benefit for screening in a particular instance, engaging in such screening stresses the healthcare system and can contribute to negative individual biopsies. Prostate-specific antigen, PSA, test, Moyer, 2012b, and CA125 assay/transvaginal ultrasound, USPSTF, 2004, do not have scientifically supported mortality benefit and are not recommended as effective means of screening for prostate and ovarian cancers, respectively. Screening recommendations are also age-based. Moyer, 2012a, USPSTF, 2008-2009. Recommendations are ambiguous for certain populations, and risk and benefit are associated with both the decision to screen as well as the decision not to screen. For example, the recent USPSTF recommendation on breast cancer screening before age 50 states that the decision to start regular biennial screening should be carefully considered by each woman in consultation with her healthcare practitioner. This recommendation arises from evidence of a decrease in mortality associated with mammography before age 50 and a substantial increase in false positives and unnecessary biopsies. Screening decisions are inherently infused with cognitive effect. Fear or worry about cancer and the screening process have been linked to increased and decreased screening behaviors. The USPSTF is a government-appointed panel of experts who routinely review available evidence and make formal recommendations for medical procedures and screenings. Ferrer et al. Page 6. Prospect Psychol Sci. Author Manuscript. Available in PMC May 1st, 2016. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. In different studies, Hay, McCall, and Magnan, 2006, Jones, Devers, Kuzel, and Wolf, 2010, Smith, Kokanai, Brooks, Saslow, and Raleigh, 2010. Specific types of affect, such as culturally driven shame associated with cancer, are thought to contribute to disparities in screening rates. Ford et al., 2006, 2003, Kim, Lee, and Kim, 2004. Moreover, due to the nature of the screening procedures, colorectal cancer screening decisions are inherently related to and influenced by disgust and embarrassment. Kaviniemi, Jandor, and Irwin, 2014. Reynolds et al., 2014. Examining key questions of basic effective science within a cancer context. Emotion and health decision-making, given the complexities associated with screening decisions, as well as ambiguity, the link between emotion and risk perception reflects a critical connection between effective science and cancer screening decisions. Although research has examined the influence of emotions on risk perceptions, much of this research has focused on perceptions or decisions in the financial domain. Example, Lerner and Kellner, 2001, Lowenstein, Weber, C., and Welch, 2001, Slavic, Finnecane, Peters, and McGregor, 2002, and little is known about how emotions influence healthcare decision-making. See Klein. As previously described, mammography recommendations for women under age 50 state that women should work with their provider to make an individualized decision based on risks, benefits, and personal values and preferences. When these guidelines were initially communicated to the public by the media, one reaction was uncertainty and suspicion about recommendations. Example, Weeks et al., 2012, Wolf, 2010. This example highlights that the deliberation, establishment, implement screening recommendations offer ecologically valid context to answer questions about how effective phenomena function under uncertainty, such as, how does emotion influence high-stakes health decision-making? For example, emerging recommendations offer a platform to see how factors such as anxiety and suspicion unfold over time, and how the trajectory of these responses influences an important screening decision. Particularly little is known about whether complex emotional states, example anger and fear experienced in concert, improve debate about whether such states should be understood as combinations of elemental emotions or whether they are unique states with their own profile of experiential, behavioral, and biological consequences. Different theoretical approaches to the nature of emotion, see Gross and Barrett, 2011, to make very different predictions about the mechanisms through which emotions will influence cancer screening decisions. Thus, fundamental knowledge about the nature of affected states can inform future efforts to identify specific patterns of 2A classic basic emotion approach characterizes emotions as categories that are irreducible or basic at both the psychological and biological levels of analysis, with universal neural processes that are automatically triggered by the environment. A revision of this approach states that specific patterns of cognitive appraisal trigger these emotions and biological patterns. Psychological construction theories hypothesize that an emotion word names a category of highly variable instances of that emotion, and a given instance emerges as a complex construction of more bases that are not specific to emotion per se. See, for example, Averill, 2012, Barrett, 2013, Ekman and Cordaro, 2011, Ellsworth, 2013, Levinson, 2011, Lindquist, 2013, Mason and Capitanio, 2012, Paintseth and Watt, 2011. Ferrer et al. Page 7. Prospect Cycall Sci. Author Manuscript. Available in PNC May 1st, 2016. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Screening decision making. Contributing to research on questions such as how do complex emotional states influence risk perception and decisions under uncertainty. Moreover, little is known about ways emotion influences decision making among experts. Research on emotion and decision making often examines how emotion influences everyday decisional processes in the general population. This line of questioning is directly with information that is attended to or ignored in medical encounters. Affect can influence problem solving in medical practice, Estrada, Isen, and Young, 1994, but additional research is necessary to more fully understand the complexity of how different affective states influence the wealth of decision-making processes among experts. Moreover, although research suggests that emotion influences attention in visual search, Kane, Dunsmore, Labar, and Mitroff, 2011, Phelps, Ling, and Carrasco, 2006, performed visual search. Example, radiologists who read mammography screenings to detect breast tumors. Cancer detection is an ideal context to examine questions about how affective factors interface with decisional processes among experts, including how do experts' affective states influence their decision-making? Does emotion influence decision-related perceptions, example visual search, differentially for experts? Effective forecasting. Screening decisions also provide a context of availability to identify the future effective consequences of a particular decision or event. Individuals are largely unable to accurately identify how they will feel in the future, a phenomenon that has been demonstrated with respect to life events, example, Wilson and Gilbert, 2003, and financial decisions, example, Leibson, 1997. However, little is known about whether individuals are correctly able to identify future effective responses to health decisions and outcomes. Screening decisions may be made in part by explicit about a cancer diagnosis or false positive screening results. Research suggests that there may be ways to improve detection decision-making by helping individuals to anticipate or prelive these effective reactions. Example, Ferrer, Klein, Zajac, Land, and Ling, 2012, Chauvet et al., 1998. However, the mechanisms underlying effects are unknown, and a better understanding of effective forecasting in this context could improve future intervention efforts. Thus, such as, are individuals correctly able to identify future effective responses to health outcomes? What mechanisms underlie accurate effective forecasting? Affective feelings and physical symptoms. A final example of research at the intersection of effective science and cancer detection involves understanding the basic relationships between external and internal sensory inputs and affective experiences. For a review, see Arnold, 1960, Barrett and Blismoro, 2009. Is it possible to distinguish, in objective term, loading, an effective response to the sensation, example, unpleasantness over the sensation, an emotional reaction to the symptom, example, fear the sensation indicates cancer, and a cognition, example, memories of previous experiences involving symptoms, perceptions about interpersonal conflict or work stress. Whereas once physical symptoms, cognitions, emotions, and perceptions were. Ferrer et al. Page 8. Prospect Cycall Sci. Author Manuscript. Available in PNC May 1st. 2006. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Thought to correspond to different processes that can be localized to different brain regions or networks. There is now an emerging consensus that they arise from the interaction of more domain general brain networks. Barrett and Sapute, 2013, Lindquist and Barrett, 2012. Nonetheless, there is still a tremendous amount of work to be done to develop formal mental states in real time. Park and Kristen, 2013. Cancer detection is an ideal context for examining such questions, given that it is effectively latent and involves experience and interpretation of pain and symptoms. While some symptoms of cancer are relatively unambiguous, example, breast lumps, depending on size and type, others are very common, example, bloating and abdominal pain in ovarian cancer, Fitch, Dean, Howell, and Gray, 2002. An individual's likelihood of seeing or characterizing his or her bodily sensation as a sign of disease, rather than increased accuracy in such categorization. Example, Noyes et al., 2001. Negative effect increases perception of bodily sensations and may play a role in facilitating interpreting ambiguous sensations as indicative of illness. Gupta and Perez-Edgar, 2011. Insights from research on the role of effect in the interpretation of bodily sensations have implications for training individuals to more accurately identify symptoms and severity separate from the affective experience such symptoms may engender. Thus, cancer detection is an ideal context to examine basic questions such as, how are external sensory inputs and bodily sensations related to effect? Is it possible to distinguish a physical bodily sensation and an effective response? Treatment, survivorship, and palliative care. Key cancer control problems relevant to effective science. When cancer is first diagnosed, individuals are faced with mastectomy in the case of breast cancer. Those that involve maintenance or adherence, example, chemotherapy, radiation, hormone therapy, a combination of the two, or certain instances of watchful waiting. Because medical treatments involve side effects, example, Collins et al., 2011, Earl and Devey, 2013, Monsuez, Charniot, Vignit, and Artigu, 2010, and can cause illness and other complications, example, Curry et al., 2011, Van Nemen and Drenoff, 2012, treatment decisions, longevity. These decisions evolve as a treatment is shown to be effective or ineffective, side effects and comorbid health conditions emerge, and cancer that had been successfully treated recurs. Cancer patients often face informed consent decisions associated with participation in early phase clinical trials in which treatments are being evaluated for safety and or efficacy, often with no direct benefit to participants. Janssen et al., 2011. Decisions about treatment and Mellon, Kershaw, Northup, and Freeman-Gibb, 2007, Mullins, McCall, Erickson, and Sanford, 2004, Stanton and Snyder, 1993. These decisions are made in the context of heightened threat sensitivity and the emotional context of everyday life that progresses even in the context of disease. Some negative affective reactions can be paralyzing, leading to suboptimal treatment adherence. De Matteo, Lepper, and Croghan, 2000, or low clinical trial. Ferrer all page 9. Prospect Cycol Sci. Author manuscript. Available in PMC May 1st, 2016. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Enrollment rates, Leroy, Christoph, Pennell, Pleasant, and Antoine, 2011. However, some types of negative reactions are associated with positive outcomes, such as when fear of recurrence is linked to increased adherence to treatment and health surveillance. Advances in our fundamental knowledge of how effect and emotion influence decisions about treatment could inform efforts to improve decision support architectures and shared decision-making in these domains. Treatment decisions can be followed by, or paired with, decisions about palliative care, or treatment focused on symptom control and management. Different cancer treatments, i.e., surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, targeted cancer therapies, biological therapies, are associated with different physical side effects, including lymphedema. Norman et al., 2009, Kissel et al., 2006, Ridner, 2005, peripheral neuropathy, Delanian, Lefay, and Pradat, 2012, nausea and vomiting, Grunberg et al., 2004, hot flashes and night sweats, Carpenter et al., 1998, Cozy et al., 1995. Pain, Badenov et al., 2013, fatigue, Horniber et al., 2012, sleep disturbance, Davidson et al., 2002, cognitive impairment, Ale 13, Weppel et al., 2010, and depression and anxiety, Ing et al., 2011, Badaminia, Omidvari, and Montazeri, 2010. These side effects and consequences can linger, or arise for the first time, as late effects. Long after treatment exposure, the words in Jensen, 2011, Trainer et al., 2013. Research has identified demographic factors in health cognition. Example, precancer risk expectation side effects described above. Example, Costanzo, Rick, and Singer, 2009, Krasovsky, Ferrer, Nelson, and Klein, 2014, Pedrosta, 2012. Strategies exist to promote quality of life and psychological adjustment in cancer. These include psychosocial, Burrs et al., 2011, Roth et al., 2002, mindfulness, heat, Wurtson, and Zacharye, 2012, and exercise, Brown et al., 2011, 2012, Ferrer et al. 2000 adjustment has a strong affective component. Example, Frederick and Lowenstein, 1999, Luhmann, Hoffman, E., Lucas, 2012. A more fundamental understanding of affective processes may be critical to better inform interventions designed to promote adaptation to cancer. Finally, it has been suggested that affect, depression, stress, and accompanying physiological changes may influence the trajectory of cancer outcomes. Keikolt, Blazer, Robles, Hefner, Loving, and Blazer, 2002. Spiegel indicating stress and tumor progression is strongest in animal models, where extreme stressors, i.e., social isolation, physical stress, influence the biology of tumors, accelerating growth and metastasis. See Antoni et al., 2006, Cole and Sood, 2012. Among humans, affect has been linked to inflammatory processes known to be involved in tumor progression. Example, Antoni et al., 2012, Sipa and Bauer, 2009. However, equivocal findings have promoted skepticism about example, Stefanek, Palmer, Toms, and Coyne, 2009. It remains possible that the presence of cancer or treatment-induced pro-inflammatory cytokines may induce depression, rather than the reverse. Sotelo, Musselman, and Nemiroff, 2014. Ferrer et al., page 10. Respect Psychol Sci, author manuscript, available in PMC May 1st, 2016. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Examining key questions of basic affective science within a cancer context. Emotion, communication, and relationships. Research on emotional communication, shared emotional experiences, emotional contagion, empathy, and compassion are highly relevant to cancer treatment. Cancer treatment decisions are rather complex because they are embedded in a social context. Individuals with cancer have relatives, friends, and a team of providers that work with them to treat their cancer. Indeed, physicians are now encouraged to participate in shared decision-making, where they partner with patients in facilitating an informed choice. Kahn, 2010. Although we know that emotional experiences can be transmitted or shared, example, de Vignemont and Singer, 2006, much remains to be learned about mechanisms and consequences of this phenomenon in the context of complex social relationships or networks. Little is known about how its emotional environment, comprised of interactions among decision, influences individual-level emotions, judgments, or decisions. Cancer treatment and survivorship is an ecologically valid context to examine basic questions such as, how are emotions communicated, perceived, and shared? What are the mechanisms and decisional consequences of emotional contagions? Research is also necessary to develop a more precise understanding of how empathic responses are formed, and under what circumstances this is likely to occur. Cancer survivorship is a context of social bonds during heightened threat, and what happens to the relationship and the individuals as the stressful experience is somewhat resolved. Example, transitioning to post-treatment, away from the close relationships with care providers, but perhaps to a strengthened relationship with loved ones who were emotionally supportive during the treatment. Importantly, basic knowledge about affective experience in social bonds and survivorship has the potential to improve the survivorship experience. Note that individual-level emotions may also influence treatment trajectories. Research has in self-efficacy and illness outcome expectations, as well as poorer adherence to treatment. Regimens, compared to positive effect, Schuetler and Cavigny, 2006, a possibility that deserves further exploration given that serious illness, such as cancer, may trigger negative affective reactions. Basic affective science questions that can be answered in the context of cancer treatment and survivorship include, how are empathic responses formed under stress? Example, cancer diagnosis, poor prognostic information experiences are resolved. Questions about the social dynamics of emotion regulation are also relevant to survivorship. While being in proximity to a close other can provide automatic regulation of negative effects, Bex and Cohn, 2011, it is also possible that individuals may be able to actively engage in efforts to regulate the negative emotions of a loved one. There is a dearth of research on explicit social emotion regulatory strategies, and a better understanding of the potential for such strategies is relevant to cancer treatment and to regulate the emotions of their loved ones, and vice versa. An understanding of shared resource building, coping, and resilience may help to answer important questions, such as when an individual is willing to take on personal. Ferrer et al., page 11. Respect Psychol Sci, author manuscript, available in PMC May 1st, 2016. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Emotional or instrumental costs in order to help a loved one with cancer cope. With a better understanding of social emotion regulation, cancer researchers could develop strategies to facilitate an adaptive trajectory of coping that adequately addresses both emotions of both individuals with cancer and their caregivers. Key questions in this context include, how do individuals regulate the emotions of a close other? What is the beneficial trajectory of coping for both individuals with cancer and their caregivers, and how can it be facilitated? For more comprehensive psychosocial interventions to promote adjustment to cancer by providing augmenting content that can improve well-being at the relationship dash, rather than the individual dash, level. For example, emotion expression interventions for promoting adjustment to cancer, example, Stanton et al. 2000, could be combined with emotional disclosure intervention content, example, Robbins et al. 2014, to facilitate adjustment for both the cancer survivor and the caregiver. Effective forecasting, like cancer detection, cancer treatment decisions provide a context for studying the complex influence of effect and emotion on high-stakes decisions that involve uncertainty or effective forecasting demands. Cancer treatment decisions often involve choosing between treatment options, and while these choices involve examining evidence about potential efficacy, there are cancer situations for which the treatment choice is not clear and involves weighing risks and benefits in the context of uncertainty. Moreover, decisions about cancer treatment side effects, example, incontinence/impotence in the treatment of prostate cancer or a colostomy bag for colorectal cancer treatment. As stated, effective forecasting, example, Leifson, 1997, Wilson and Gilbert, 2003, and the role of emotions in decision-making under ambiguity, example, Lerner and Kellner, 2001, Lowenstein, Weber, C., and Welch, 2001. Slavic, Finucane, Peters, and McGregor, 2002. Have been little is known about these decisions in the context of a decision that has the very real potential to influence mortality outcomes, see Farrer et al. In press. Thus, like cancer detection, cancer treatment and survivorship is an ecologically valid context to examine questions like, how does effective forecasting influence high-stakes decision-making? Affective and cognitive processes, basic questions about association between affective and cognitive processing can also be examined in the context of cancer treatment and survivorship. Cancer by effective challenges associated with cancer diagnosis and survivorship, example, Ailes et al., 2002, Weckel et al., 2010. Although evidence for these effects are mixed and the mechanisms underlying them are poorly understood, see Ailes and Sakin, 2007, Jim et al., 2009. Effective science is relevant for understanding these cognitive impairments, given theoretical frameworks suggesting that affect and cognition may share neural processes, Barrett and Sapute, 2013, Lindquist and to the potential to provide insight into the experience of other treatment-related side effects, given that cognitive expectations and effective interpretations contribute to the subjective experience of pain and other physical symptoms, Atlas and Wager, 2012. In a related line of thinking, we know that affect influences memory for emotionally evocative events or events that are experienced concurrently while an individual is in affective state regardless of them. Farrer et al. Page 12. Prospect Cycol Sci. Author manuscript. Available in PMC May 1st, 2016. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Target of such a state, example, Okuda et al., 2004, but little is known about whether this is protective or destructive for memory, problem solving, and executive function, Barrett, Tugade, and Engel, 2004. Cancer treatment and survivorship are thus affective and cognitive processes implemented in the brain, and what underlying mechanisms do they share? Affect and bodily sensation. Evidence from cognitive neuroscience demonstrates that sensory input is not integrated into perceptual experiences with unidirectional processing. Rather, sensory processes and cognitive processes, example, memory and expectation, synchronously contribute to the perception of the world and body, Damasio, 1989. More recently, effective neuroscience research has shown that it processes sensations, such as pain, example, Wager et al., 2004. For example, somewhat paradoxically, repeated exposure to painful stimuli can either increase or decrease sensitization to pain, depending on whether neural mechanisms related to habituation or sensitization are engaged, Jetma, Jones, and Wager, 2014. However, much remains to be learned about how affective processes contribute to engagement of these processes, and how they contribute to the experience of other bodily sensations, such as fatigue. Key questions include, how does affect contribute to the experience of pain and other bodily sensations? Studies designed to generate a more fundamental understanding of how these processes relate to different types of pain and other physical symptoms, example, fatigue, and more precise identification of the neuromechanisms that contribute to facilitate pain and symptom management among individuals being treated for cancer. Inquiry related to cancer concerns the normal and impaired development of emotion regulatory capacity and effective processing. Cancer and cancer treatments can influence neuropsychological processes among those diagnosed with cancer as children, and these effects are borne out over a lifetime, potentially disrupting normal functioning. Moreover, the side effects of cancer and cancer treatments often manifest in children, adolescents, and adults as late effects years after death, and their proposed biological and psychological mechanisms have the potential to shed light on how normal and impaired cognitive, affective, and sensory processing change over the lifespan. Relevant basic affective science questions include, what shape does normal and impaired development of emotion regulatory capacity take? In turn, understanding the role of affective experiences in late effects of cancer treatment has implications for ways in which these effects are addressed. Affect and the autonomic whether or not emotions have unique and specific patterns of nervous system activation has implications for research examining variability in tumor progression and metastasis trajectories. Although some theoretical frameworks involve a classification of emotions where each discrete emotion can be identified with a unique nervous system activation pattern, Gross and Barrett, 2011, example, Ekman, 1992, Porsemna, 2011, Ekman and Cordaro, 2011, Frijta, 1986, no such replicable patterns have been identified. Ferrer et al. Page 13. Prospect Psychol Sci. Author Manuscript. Available in PMC May 1st, 2016. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. 2012. Barrett, Lindquist et al. 2007. Lindquist et al. 2012. Instead, each emotion has varied activation, rather than a specific and unique pattern, even with the same 13. Cacioppo et al. 2000. Mapping and understanding nervous system activation heterogeneity is critical for designing applied studies to elucidate potential links between emotion and cancer progression. For example, negative affective states often involve strong beta-adrenergic sympathetic nervous system (SNS) activity that, in non-human animal models, encourages cancer cell replication. Genetics et al. 2012, Irwin and Cole, 2011, Sloan et al. 2007, activity may also directly influence the microenvironment of tumors, enhancing metastasis and increasing mortality. Antoni et al. 2006, Cole and Su, 2012. However, as stated, evidence for the influence of affective states on tumor progression and metastasis in humans is lacking. See Stefanek, Palmer, Toms, and Coyne, 2009. This may be because humans have more variable affective and physiological responses than do non-human animals. Critical and unanswered basic questions and signatures. How can we map and understand heterogeneity in processes associated with emotional responding? Basic affective science questions relevant across cancer control domains. Up to this point, we have attempted to provide a heuristic framework for basic affective science questions that could be addressed within specific domains of cancer control. However, there are other fundamental questions that could be examined in multiple domains, such as 1. What are the distinctions between discrete emotions and general effects? And emotion and stress. And 3. How can we move towards an empirical science of affective experience through measurement advances? Distinctions among effect, stress, and emotion. Although a detailed discussion of the intersection of the fields of stress and emotion is beyond the scope of this paper, see Desteno, Gross, and Kobzynski, 2013, Gansel, Morris, and Worthington, 2010, Lazarus, 2006, Lerner, Dahl, Hariri, and Taylor, 2007, Zotra, 2006, to cancer prevention and control research. Research on stress largely focuses on the association between a stressor, a situation where demands exceed coping ability, and biobehavioral responses, examples, disruptions in homeostasis, hormonal dysregulation, negative health outcomes. Research on emotion largely focuses on brief experiences of discrete emotional states, neuropsychological underpinnings of such experiences, and behavioral consequences. Although the fields are disconnected and proceed somewhat in parallel missions and scientific focus rather than real biological differences, then each field could benefit from capitalizing on existing scientific discoveries and theoretical and methodological advances of the other. Further, understanding the associations among various affective states may be important. For example, is increasing positive emotion the same as reducing stress? These types of questions can be addressed in an ecologically valid cancer context due to proposed role of both stress and emotion in biobehavior. Ferrer et al. Page 14. Prospect Psychol Sci. Author Manuscript. Available in PNC May 1st, 2016. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Control. For example, as described above, emotions are relevant to decisions and behaviors associated with risk and prevention, detection, treatment, survivorship, and palliative care. Stressor may play a role in cancer-related biobehavioral processes such as craving. Taken together, these cancer-relevant processes could provide an ideal space for examining the associations and distinctions between emotions and stress. Similarly, the functional distinction between discrete emotions and more general effect, Barrett, 2012, has implications for how we understand the influence of affective states on cancer-related behaviors and decisions. Research on how discrete emotions systematically influence decisions decision-making, social processing, and persuasion. Example, Testino, Dasgupta, Bartlett, and Patrick. 2004a, Testino, Petty, Rucker, Wagoner, and Braverman. 2004b, Lerner and Heltner. 2001, Lerner, Gonzalez, Small, and Fishhoff. 2003, but has rarely been undertaken explicitly in a cancer domain. See Ferrer et al. In Press. Understanding when and how discrete emotion versus general effect systematically influence different types of cancer-related behaviors can contribute to targeting and changing affective states or by identifying those that increase need for intervention based on effective screening. Measurement and coherence. Measurement issues have plagued effective science. Example, Barrett, 2006a, Barrett and Russell, 1998, Larson and Fredrickson, 1999, Quigley and Barrett, in Press, Quigley, Lindquist and Barrett, 2013, and valid measures are essential to understand effective phenomena. Much remains emotional and effective responding as it occurs in everyday life. Barrett, 2009. Also essentially unknown are the temporal trajectory of emotional experiences and related physiological markers and outcomes, and the ways in which induced effect compares to naturally occurring effect in predicting behaviors. Still less is known about how to measure and operationalize group-level emotions. For example, existing epidemiological cohorts could generate fundamental knowledge about effective science, while contributing to efforts designed to understand could be assessed more precisely. With shorter, validated measures, following individuals and groups as they move from cancer prevention through detection, diagnosis, treatment, and survivorship may lend insight into the trajectory of effective experiences, how they function in the context of physiological responses, and how they differ depending on health and social support networks. Moreover, cancer control efforts that leverage and connect large, population-level datasets would benefit from unconventional group-level or census-level social network analysis to predict outcomes of individuals who live in an area. Varied cancer decision-making contexts may also lend themselves to novel methods for studying in-the-moment emotion and real-world responses, and for examining effect over time rather than in thin slices in a laboratory. For example, one could videotape people being consented and coding for emotional cues associated with outcomes and satisfaction. Ferrer et al. Page 15. Perspective May 1st, 2016. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. With those outcomes, example, Albrecht et al., 2008, or could unobtrusively observe couples' conversations in code for emotional content that may be related to psychological adjustment to cancer, Robbins et al., 2014. Studying the brain directly is also important. Integrating neural measures can provide valuable insights into heal Amadeo, 2010, and cancer may be a context in which the brain could be imaged over time to identify structural and activation changes associated with emotion trajectories. Furthering the basic science of subjective experience through advances in measurement and technology is critical to advancing cancer prevention efforts. Conclusion. Interdisciplinary efforts between cancer control and effective science will yield deeper insights into workings of the human mind within the context of health and disease. From partnerships and collaborations to address questions like those identified in this paper, we have before us a wealth of untapped opportunities. Effective scientists who focus on basic questions can be motivated to consider research possibilities in a cancer context, focusing on unique opportunities and advantages with more representative populations. Similarly, cancer control scientists can be motivated to collaborate and to seek out effective scientists to inform cancer control efforts by applying rigorous effective science theory and methodology. To apply cancer research is always filled with challenges, but challenge fuels discovery. The history of science teaches us that one must communicate across unfamiliar theories, vocabularies, and viewpoints to reach a novel context for discovery. For those of us who wonder about the basic mechanisms of effect and emotion, or who strive to improve cancer control, such challenges can be an opportunity to speed scientific discovery in both fields and improve public health in the process. References: Albrecht TL, ABSS, Gleason Me, Harper FW, Foster TS, Peterson AM, Ruckteschel JC. Influence of clinical communication on patients' decision-making on participation in clinical trials. Self-care and COVID-19 pandemic. David J., Disabato 1, Polavia Aurora 1, and Karen G. Objective: self-care behaviors aimed at maintaining physical and mental health are often recommended during stressful contexts. We tested emotional predictors of self-care behaviors: healthy eating, exercise, engaging in a hobby, relaxation/meditation, time spent with a supportive person, talking online with friends/family during the COVID-19 pandemic and their emotional consequences, whereby positive effect increases self-care behaviors, hypothesis 1, and self-care behaviors increase positive effect while decreasing negative effect, hypothesis 2. Method: a 10-day daily diary was completed by 289 adult participants in the United States during spring 2020 when counties in 40 out of 50 states had some form of stay-at-home orders. Results: lagged analyses for hypothesis 1 suggested that positive effects did not. Objective: self-care behaviors aimed at maintaining physical and mental health are often recommended during stressful contexts. We tested emotional predictors of self-care behaviors: healthy eating, exercise, engaging in a hobby, relaxation/meditation, time spent with a supportive person, talking online with friends/family during the COVID-19 pandemic and their emotional consequences. We hypothesized a reciprocal within-person process whereby positive effects increases self-behaviors increase positive effect while decreasing negative effect, hypothesis 2. Method: a 10-day daily diary was completed by 289 adult participants in the United States during spring 2020 when counties in 40 out of 50 states had some form of analyses for hypothesis 1 suggested that positive effects did not significantly predict residualized change in self-care behaviors. However, more intense negative effects predicted increased self-care behaviors from one day to the next. Concurrent analyses for hypothesis 2 indicated most self-care behaviors were associated with more positive effects and some with less negative effects on the same day. Lagged analyses for hypothesis 2 indicated that self-care behaviors largely did not predict residualized change in positive or negative effect from level. People who experienced more positive effects engaged in more self-care behaviors across the sampling period. Conclusion: self-care behaviors continue to have mental health benefits during stressful environments, such as the COVID-19 pandemic and stay-at-home orders. Negative effect can play an adaptive role during times of stress by facilitating self-care. Keywords: health behaviors, positive effect, negative effect, experience sampling, daily diary. Supplemental.oi.org/10.1037/T0001239.subkey stressful context can negatively impact physical and mental https://doi.org/10.1037/T0001239.subkey health. Cohen et al. 2019. However, prior research has suggested ways to support health under stressful conditions. Folkman, 2008. Self-care behaviors. Example: stressful context to sustain health and well-being. The COVID-19 pandemic is no exception. Major public health agencies recommended self-care behaviors. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, 2020, Mayo Clinic Health System, 2020. Yet markedly little research has captured how effective phenomena both influence and are influenced by self-care behaviors during times of stress. Given the documented increases in reported psychological distress at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, 2020, this investigation aimed to further the understanding of effective. This article was published online 1st September 15, 2022. David J. Disabato, https://orchid.org/00001-7094-4996 https://orchid.org/00004-orchid.org/000-00002-30 to conceptualization, investigation, writing original draft, and writing review and editing. Pujaji, Sydney contributed equally to data curation and project administration. 833. Health psychology. Copyright 2020. https processes that contribute to the maintenance of health and well-being during stress. Self-care behaviors are defined. While traditional health behaviors are associated with physical health and disease prevention, self-care behaviors focus more on mental health promotion. Koba et al. 2011. Self-care behaviors include behaviors commonly recommended by mental health professionals, such as engaging in a hobby, relaxation/meditation, and supportive social interaction. Ledgwood et al. 2001. Some traditional health behaviors fall under this umbrella, such as healthy eating and exercise, due to their known mental health benefits. These recommendations were commonly endorsed by public health organizations to maintain mental health during this stressful time. CDC, 2020, Mayo Clinic Health System, 2020. In this investigation, we focused specifically on 6 self-care behaviors. Ayers, healthy eating, exercise, engaging in a hobby, relaxation/meditation, time spent with a supportive person, and talking online with friends/family, based on 3 key criteria. First, they are examining effective processes and behavior. Aurora et al., 2022, Nylox et al., 2018. Second, these behaviors are commonly suggested by therapists and counselors. Third, these behaviors are reliably measured in adults, including adults across the lifespan. Does effect influence self-care behaviors? Prior research suggests elevations in positive affect, PA, may be effective at driving self-care behaviors. The discrete emotion of happiness is theorized mental action, Oatley and Johnson Laird, 1987. Experience sampling research has begun to unpack these processes. For example, research in daily life has shown that PA co-occurs with health behaviors, such as healthy eating and exercise. Connor et al., 2015, Fredrickson et al., 2021, as well as engaging in a hobby and social interaction. Sinentag et al., 2008, Zawadzki et al., 2015. When using a lagged model to predict changes in self-care behaviors over time using samples of healthy adults, college students, and those with clinical depression and anxiety. Aurora et al., 2022, Nylox et al., 2018. Unlike PA, negative effect, NA, has gender ally not been found to predict self-care over time. Aurora et al., 2022, Nylox et al., 2018, Pressman et al., 2019, nor to predict self-care behaviors in daily life. Dunton et al., 2009, Fredrickson et al., 20. Do self-care behaviors influence affect? A breadth of research has suggested that engaging in self-care behaviors is associated with improved mood. Kim et al., 2017. Theory and empirical evidence suggest that after engaging in these self-care behaviors, individuals experience increased PA, Kahn, 2010, Pressman et al., 2019. This relationship has been identified for several self-care behaviors such as physical activity, Schulten et al., 2019, relaxation /social connection, Koch and Fredrickson, 2010. Increased PA is theorized to function as a reinforcement for self-care behaviors that then promotes those same behaviors in the future, Van Capellen et al., 2018. In addition, theories underlying leading psychological interventions suggest that engaging in self-care behaviors may dampen elevated NA, example behavioral activation, Lejuez et al., 2001. Meta-analyses suggest exercise significant patient samples, Kahn, 2010. Research in daily life has shown that following self-care behaviors, individuals may experience attenuated NA in the moment, Schulten et al., 2019. Indeed, self-care recommendations during the COVID-19 pandemic emphasize these behaviors as central in decreasing distress and NA in addition to increasing happiness, CDC, 2020, Mayo Clinic Health System, 2020. Current investigation. The current experiences relate dynamically to one another during the stressful context of the COVID-19 pandemic. During the first month or two into the pandemic, i.e., March and April 2020, the United States had some form of stay-at-home orders in counties from 40 out of the 50 states, CDC, 2021, and people were experiencing a spike in psychological distress, Ackman et al., 2022, Etman et al., 2020. Self-care behaviors were conceptualized as actions recommended by medical organizations to CDC, 2020, Mayo Clinic Health System, 2020. A daily diary design was used to capture changes from one day to the next. Hypothesis 1 investigated the effective predictors of self-care behaviors. Consistent with prior studies before the COVID-19 pandemic, we hypothesized that more intense PA would predict increased self-care behaviors, but we did not have hypotheses about NA intensity. Hypothesis 2 investigated the effect consistent with research on the hedonic benefits of self-care. We hypothesized that daily self-care behaviors would increase PA and decrease NA. Theoretical justifications for the covariates are included in the online supplemental materials. Method: transparency and openness. The data collection and exclusion criteria for the parent study were pre-registered on March 23, 2020. https://OSS.io/9HC7D?UHT9HC7D?Mark UHT9HC7D?Only=9D779CFE1E748-167F48. Participants and procedures. The current investigation used participants in the control group from a larger parent study, Thompson et al., 2021. Participants for the parent study were recruited by the company in terms of sex, age, and education in the United States. Data collection was entirely online through Qualtrics surveys and occurred between March 24 and April 9, 2020. Unrelated to the current investigation, participants were first randomized to either a MAP 834 Disabato et al. This document is copyrighted by the American Psychological Association or one of its allied publishers. This article is intended solely for the personal use of the individual user. Cognition intervention group or control group. Study procedures included an initial baseline survey with electronic informed consent followed by 10 days of diary surveys. This investigation relies on the baseline survey in which participants reported demographic information. All other questionnaires and health decision-making problems were unrelated to the current investigation, as well as math cognition training for those in the intervention group. In addition, this investigation focused on those participants who chose to continue participating. Diary surveys were sent to participants, beginning the day after baseline, at the same time each day, late afternoon or early evening, depending on participants' time zones. Surveys were identical across the 10 days, except for randomized order of the items. The study procedures were approved by the Institutional Review Board at Kent State University, IRB #20. 151. Details about the parent study's participants and procedures can be found in a total of 2,693 participants from the parent study completed the online consent, were randomized, and started the baseline survey. Because this investigation only relied on daily diary data, we examined the subset of participants that agreed to complete diaries, N equals 709. To ensure no influence of the parent study's math cognition intervention, we excluded participants in the active intervention group, N equals 354. For convention, example, Nylock et al. 2000 clients, N equals 7.58, SD equals 3.11, range equals 1 to 10, was used as the cutoff to exclude participants with only one diary survey, N equals 31. Participants were also excluded if they were missing on any demographic variables included as covariates, N equals 35.1 after all exclusions. This left a final sample size of N equals 289 participants for the current investigation. See the online supplemental material. All the exclusion criteria. Diary compliance for the final sample was good at 79%, N equals 7.88, SD equals 2.57, range equals 2 to 10. Suggest IMG analyses could include up to 2,276 diary observations across the 289 participants. Point 2 compliance by day ranged from 71% to 85%. See table S2. In terms of demographics, the final sample was 55% female with a mean age of 50, range equals 18 to 82. Most participants were white, 78.5%, with small percentages of racial/ethnic minorities, 7.3% black, 5.2% Asian, 2.8% Hispanic, and 6.2% multiracial, other, or did not report. More detailed demographics are provided in the online supplemental materials. Measures. Other than the demographic questions, which were administered in the baseline survey, only item the reliability for diary scores was either rated out into within person, RC, and between person, RKF, in DCES based on generalizability theory with a cross design, Bolger and Lorenzow, 2013. Effect. Momentary effect was assessed at the very beginning of each diary based on contemporary circumplex models of effect, Raffaelli et al., 2007. The instructions and items were the same as previous research, Aurora et al., 2022, Nylock et al., 2008. To what extent do you feel on a list of emotion words presented in random order using a 1 to 5 Likert scale? 1 equals not at all, 2 equals a little, 3 equals moderately, 4 equals quite a bit, and 5 equals extremely. Mean scores were created for PA and NA, and then separated out into within person and between person components via person mean centering and mean aggregation, respectively. The within person components assessed effect intensity in the moment, while the sampling period. PA included the following 6 words: relief, enjoyment, happiness, amusement, affection. Content, RC equals 0.71, RKF equals 0.99. NA included the following 6 words: fear, sadness, distress, guilt, anger, and disgust. RC equals 0.68, RKF equals 0.99. Self-care behaviors. After participants reported on their effect, they indicated whether and items were the same as previous research, Aurora et al., 2022, Nylock et al., 2018. Participants were asked whether they performed any of the following actions or behaviors in the past day. Response options were either no coded as 0, yes coded as 1, or does not apply coded as missing. 0.36 self-care behaviors from prior research were used in the per-rent investigation: ate healthily, exercised, engaged in a hobby, relaxation/meditation activities, spent time with a supportive person, and 5 of the 6 items included a brief description of the behavior in parentheses to maximize the consistent interpretation of item language. See the online supplemental materials. Individual items were analyzed and separated into within person and between person components. Consistent with previous research, we also created some scores. To understand predictors of engaging in multiple self-care behaviors on the same day, Moore et al., 2022. This overall sum score is the total number of unique self-care behaviors engaged in. Score reliabilities were not calculated for the sum score of self-care behaviors because it was conceptualized as a formative count variable, not a reflective latent variable. Edwards and Boghossian, 2000. Data analytics strategy. To test our hypotheses, multi-level structural equation model ING, CM, was applied with person as the nesting variable. Statistical details are provided in the online supplemental materials. We first used lagged analyses to test a range of self-care behaviors, hypothesis 1, and self-care behaviors increase positive effect while decreasing negative effect, hypothesis 2. 7. 1. For example, n equals 25 participants did not provide a valid zip code to calculate their population density with. 2. Note, the exact number of diary observations and participants included differs across the model slightly due to item-level missing data and life associations. These numbers are reported in the tables reporting each set of model results. With does not apply ranged from 0.8% to 1.4% across the self-care behaviors. Self-care during COVID-19 835. This document is copyrighted by the American Psychological Association or one of its allied publishers. This article is intended solely for the personal use of the individual user and is not to be disseminated broadly. Separate multi-level SEMs were applied with the self-care sum score and the 6 individual behaviors. The lagged analyses involve NA as predictors of concurrent, i.e., today, self-care behaviors as well as cross-lagged, i.e., yesterday, with in-person self-care behaviors as a predictor of concurrent, i.e., today, PA and NA. The auto-regressive lags, i.e., yesterday, were included as additional covariates to capture residual eyes change. Lags could span longer than a day due to missing data. Example, Tuesday's effect predicting Thursday's self-care behavior if Wednesday's report was missing. For self-care behaviors predicting PA and concurrent analyses in addition to lagged analyses. Another name for concurrent analyses is same-day analyses since they involve predictor scores and outcome scores from the same diary report. Example, day 3 of the diary. We conducted concurrent analyses here because the predictor of self-care behaviors was assumed to take place between the previous day's diary report and the same day's diary report. Example, between day 2 report and day 3 report. Again, 7 separate multi-level. Figure 1 displays a multi-level path diagram of the concurrent and lagged analyses applied to the self-care sum score. Covariates are excluded. We interpret the between-person associations between self-care behaviors and effects in these concurrent analyses because the between-person associations in the lagged analyses are slightly biased due to excluding the first day of the diary for each participant. Results. Descriptive statistics. Table 1 presents multi-level descriptive statistics for PA, NA. The self-cares. In general, the within-person correlations are weaker than their between-person counterparts. PA was positively associated with the self-care sum score, while NA was negatively associated. However, the effect sizes for PA were more than double that of NA. The associations among the individual behaviors are almost all positive and significant. The average PA score on any given day was not much larger than that of NA. The average self-care sum score on any given day was 3 to 4 out of 6. Suggests frequent individual behaviors were the two involving social interaction. Hypothesis 1. Effective predictors of self-care behaviors. We first tested Hypothesis 1 to identify whether PA predicted self-care behaviors. The top of Table 2 presents the lagged within-person analysis results for the self-care sum score and each of the 6 individual self-care behaviors. See Tables S2, S8 for the 95% credible intervals. Within person PA or any of the individual behaviors. On the contrary, more intense NA the day before was significantly. Figure 1 multi-level path diagram of the concurrent and lagged analyses. Note. PA equals positive effect, NA equals negative effect, I equals individual person, T equals time in days, B equals regression coefficient, U equals covariance, D equals residual bar ions. Arrows with black dots in the middle indicate random effects with estimated variance component. 836 Disabato et al. This document is copyrighted by the American Psychological Association or one of its allied publishers. This article is intended solely for the personal use of the individual user and is not to be disseminated broadly. Associated with a greater rate of overall self-care behaviors as well as specifically healthy eating and time with a supportive person. Days into the diary was not a significant predictor of residualized change for the self-care sum score and most of the individual behaviors. The top of Table 3 presents the between-person analysis results for the self-care sum score and each of the 6 individual self-care behaviors. See Tables S9, S15 for the 95% credible intervals. At the between-person level, older adults engaged in a greater rate of overall self-care behaviors across the sampling period. Older adults also tended to engage in healthy eating more frequently across the sampling period, while women more frequently engaged in relaxation/meditation, time with a supportive person, participants living in more population-dense areas of the United States also reported more frequent healthy eating. The between person covariate of number of diaries completed, i.e., compliance, was not significant for any self-care outcome. Hypothesis 2. Effective consequences of self-care behaviors. We next tested hypothesis 2 by investigating the impact of self-care behaviors on PA and NA. We conducted both lagged and concurrent within lagged analyses. The middle of Table 2 presents the lagged within-person analysis results testing whether self-care behaviors predicted residualized change in PA over time. The self-care sum score the day before was not significantly associated with residualized change in PA. Of the individual self-care behaviors, only relaxation/meditation was a significant predictor of PA. The bottom of Table 2 presents the lagged analysis results testing whether self-care behaviors predicted residual care sum score the day before was not significantly associated with residualized change in NA, and none of the individual behaviors were significant predictors of residualized change in NA. Table 1 Multi-level descriptive statistics. Variables 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1. Positive effect, 0.32 asterisk 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 0.28 asterisk 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 0.13 star 0.26 asterisk 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 0.21 asterisk asterisk 09.082. Negative effect, 0.27 asterisk 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 0.08 0.19 asterisk 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 0.01 0.09 0.08 0.05 0.033. Self-care sum score 0.19 asterisk 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 0.08 asterisk 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 0.62 asterisk 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 0.62 asterisk 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 0.65 asterisk 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 0.75 asterisk 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 S16, S22 for the 95% credible interval. PA concurrent analysis. The top of Table 4 presents the concurrent within-person analysis. Results testing the influence of self-care behaviors on PA. See tables. S16. The within-person self-care. Sum score was significantly associated with more intense PA. All 6 of the individual behaviors were associated with more intense PA on the same day. The within-person covariate of days into the diary was also significant, indicating people experienced less intense PA as the diary progressed along the 10-day sampling period. The middle of Table 3 presents the self-care behaviors with PA. At the between-person level, the rate of both more PA. People with a higher rate of self-care behaviors. The sampling period tended to experience greater PA, half of the individual self-care behaviors, healthy eating, exercise, and relaxation/meditation were significantly associated with more PA. The covariates of number of diaries completed, i.e., compliance, and age were not significant. On the other hand, sex was significant in 4 of the models. Women tended to report less PA across the sampling period. NA concurrent analysis. The bottom of Table 4 presents the concurrent within-person analysis results testing the association of self-care behaviors with NA. The within-person self-care sum score was significantly associated with less NA. In terms of the individual behaviors, exercise. Table 3. Between-person standardized regression coefficients from the multi-level CMs. N equals 279, N equals 1,938. Self-care as outcome from lagged analysis. Predictor sum score healthy eating will exercise hobble relax/meditate time with support talk with friends/family. Positive effect of 0.30, 0.19, 0.30, 0.25, 0.35, 0.20, 0.14. Negative effect of 0.0 Age, 10-year units, 0.18, 0.30, 0.10, 0.06, 0.05, 0.08, 0.02. Female 0.10, 0.05, 0.01, 0.06, 0.21, 0.21, 0.19. Population density 0.04, 0.7, 0.01, 0.05, 0.02. Compliance 0.03, 0.04, 0.02, 0.01, 0.07, 0.04, 0.09. N equals 289, N equals 2,275. Positive effect as outcome. Predict, self-care, age. Predictor sums, female 0, compliance 0. Table 4. Concurrent within days into diary. Self-care behavior 20.060. Days into diary. Note. Significant. 838. This document is copied. And relaxation. Discussion. The current this document is copyrighted. And relaxation/meditation were associated with lesson 10 and A on the same day. It was significant. Indicating people experienced slightly less intense an A as the diaries progressed along the 10-day sampling period. The bottom of Table 3 presents the between-person analysis results for the self-care sum score and each of the 6 individual self-care behaviors with NA. At the between-person level, the self-care sum score was not significant, tended to report more NA across the sampling PE riot in all models but one. The between-person covariance of sex, population density, and number of diaries completed, i.e., compliance, were not significant in the models. Discussion. The current investigation tested how emotional experiences and self-care behaviors related to one another in daily life during the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. We investigated effect as a predictor of self-care behaviors, i.e., hypothesis 1, and effect hypothesis 2. Self-care behaviors included healthy eating, exercise, engaging in a hobby, relaxation/meditation, time with a supportive person, and talking online with friends/family. Although prior research has examined effect-behavior dynamics, this investigation is one of the first to test associations within a stressful context. Our results suggest that the context influences the way in which affective processes may drive the use of self-care behaviors, in that more intense negative, rather than cozy tie. However, consistent with prior research, self-care behaviors were generally associated with increased PA on the same day they were reported. Taken together, these findings support public health recommendations to engage in self-care behaviors as a way to increase positive emotions and manage distress. Specifically, our results are in line with established treatment recommendations for depression, i.e., behavioral activation, Ledger et al., 2001, and suggest similar recommendations. Our findings emphasize that these benefits may only be short-term, influencing emotional experiences within a day and not across days. However, consistent engagement in self-care behaviors might help sustain PA across several days. Dynamic changes in self-care behaviors. We did not find support for hypothesis 1 that within-person PA would predict increases in self-care behaviors from one day to the next, and this was surprising given that positive emotions can have salient benefits during times. Previous studies have found lagged associations between PA and health behaviors. Pressman et al., 2019. These have included multiple assessments a day allowing for lags within a day. Nylox et al., 2018. Schulten et al., 2019, rather than the lags across days tested in the current investigation. Consistent with this interpretation, several other daily diary studies did not find that PA influenced behaviors from one day to the next. Connor et al., 2015. Fredrickson et al., 2021. Zawadsky et al. Suggest that frequency of sampling could be responsible for discrepancies between findings. We found that within-person NA the day before predicted unique increases in overall self-care behaviors over time, while controlling for PA. The same NA effect was found for the individual self-care behaviors of healthy eating and spending time with a supportive person. The healthy eating finding is surprising given prior research finding an opposite, inverse association. Cavigniani et al. 2019 between NA and eating fruits and vegetables. However, local stay-at-home orders at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic resulted in people eating healthier due to cooking their own food and not going out to eat at restaurants/bars. Flanagan et al., 2021. It is possible this lifestyle shift also changed the day-to-day dynamic between NA and healthy eating. The finding regarding time spent with a supportive person is less surprising given prior research that people may use social support as a way to downregulate their NA. It supports functional theories of discrete emotions that emphasize the adaptive role negative emotions. Can play in coping, example Quickman et al., 2016. The stressful envy. Ramen of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as health promotion messaging relating to self-care, could help to explain these findings. We found support for hypothesis, too, that when a person engaged in more self-care behaviors, they reported more intense PA the same day. The same PA effect was found for each of the results add to the large body of literature suggesting that health behaviors and PA are linked together at the within-person level. Pressman et al., 2019. These results also support the continued mental health benefits of self-care behaviors during stressful contexts, like the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is important evidence given times of stress are exactly when self-care behaviors are most commonly recommended. CDC, 2020, Mayo Clinic Health System, 2020. Other than relaxation/meditation, in-person PA from one day to the next, lagged analysis. This suggests the hedonic effects of some self-care behaviors are short-lived and have waned by the next day. We found that less intense NA was reported on days when PELPLE engaged in more overall self-care behaviors, suggesting event ethics to mood. The effect size was smaller compared to PA, which is consistent with mostly null associations for the individual self-care behaviors as well as prior mixed findings. Activity decreases NA over time, Fredrickson et al., 2021, whereas other studies have found no effect, Richards et al., 2012. The lack of an effect for time with a supportive person was surprising given the mood benefits of positive social interactions documented in the experience sampling literature, Pemberton and Fuller-Tyskiewicz, 2016. The fact that many of these social interactions may have been online or virtual during the COVID-19 pandemic could have contributed to the weaker hedonic benefits. When using behaviors did not predict an A from one day to the next, suggesting that benefits would be restricted within the same day. Individual differences in self-care routines. People who engaged in more overall self-care behaviors, as well as the individual self-care behaviors of eating fruits and vegetables, exercising, and relaxation/meditation, tended to experience higher PA across the sampling period. The between-person effect sizes were the largest observed in the current investigation. Self-care during COVID-19 839. This document is copyrighted by the American Psychological Association or one of its allied publishers. This article is intended solely for the personal use of the individual user and is not to be disseminated broadly. Hence, people who had consistent, daily routines involving self-care behaviors were the same people who had the highest PA tendencies. This is consistent with past experience sampling research investigating self-care behaviors and effects. Aurora 18. In contrast, there was no significant between-person association for NA tendencies and overall self-care behaviors. The only individual behavior linked to individual differences in NA tendencies was healthy eating. Again, highlight ing the unique role food might have played at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Note that these between-person associations do not have any temporal precedence, and thus their directionality is unclear and could go from effects to self-care behaviors. The dynamic changes in self-behaviors differences in self-care routines, i.e., between persons, complement each other in order to understand how self-care behaviors benefit mental health. Although the within-person effect sizes were small, the between-person effect sizes were large. For example, a person who engaged in all 6 self-care behaviors each day for the 10 days was predicted to have a PA score 0.96 standard deviations higher than someone who engaged in no self-care behaviors across the 10 days. The cohency of 1.0. Therefore, the small benefits of self-care we have IRS on any given day clearly add up to large benefits when consistent over time. Limitations and conclusions. The current investigation had several limitations. First, the daily behavior items were dichotomous to reduce participant burden. We were not able to assess the intensity or duration of participant self-care behaviors as each behavior was measured with a yes/no response scale. items involve daily hassles instead of healthy self-care. For example, the item talk to a friend or family member on the phone or online might have reflected interpersonal conflict or rumination for some particide hands. However, that item's positive with in-person association with PA suggests most participants did not endorse the item in that way. Third, we did not include all relevant self-care behaviors associated with mental health promotion, and future studies should expand the construct breadth with additional behaviors. For example, to decrease distress, Bezadovsky et al., 2019, but sleep is best assessed with morning diaries, which we did not implement here. Fourth, we did not explicitly measure individual differences in stress exposure or stress reactivity to the COVID-19 pandemic. Inevitably, some participants experienced more stress than others, which may not be entirely reflected in their daily ratings of negative effect. Fifth, although the sample was intended to match national distribution of education was underrepresented, 2% instead of 12%, due to difficulties in recruitment. It is possible that people with lower educational attainment and socioeconomic status might not experience as many hedonic rewards from self-care behaviors, given they tend to perceive fewer practical benefits from them. Campbell et al., 2010. In sum, given the psychological distress and social isolation commonly reported at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in the United States, Ackman et al., 2022, CDC. Understand whether people continue to benefit from self-care behaviors during such stressful times. We found that self-care behaviors, healthy eating, exercise, engaging in a hobby, relaxation/meditation, time spent with a supportive person, talking online with friends/family, were associated with increased PA and decreased NA on the same day. When looking at the individual behaviors, benefits for PA were the most consistent. However, the benefits of self-care behaviors on effect did not extend from engagement in such behaviors each day to maintain emotional well-being. Thus, individuals could benefit most from daily routines involving self-care behaviors during times of stress. Contrary to prior experience sampling research, we also found that NA the day before predicted a greater rate of self-care behaviors. During times of stress, NA may play an adaptive role for some people by activating concern for one's well-being and the I-need. Tiation of self-care behaviors like healthy eating and time. Our findings suggest that consistent self-care behaviors each day are effective at regulating mood during stressful situations like the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. References: Ackman, L. B. Denis, J. E. Dunn, E. W. Fancourt, D. E. Goldberg, E. Hellewell, J. F. Jones, S. P. Caron, E. Laird, R. Lyubomirsky, S. Rizipa, A. Saxena, S. Thornton, E. Full terms and conditions of access and use can be found at http Psychology and Health, ISS. View crossmark data. Mediation. Relations among cognition. Effect. Mark T. A Department of Community. Received October 3rd. Objective. Researchers have historically treated cognition and effect as secret-rate constructs in motivating health behavior. We present a framework and empirical evidence for complex relations between cognition and effect in predicting health behavior. Main outcome, design, and results. First, effect and cognition can mediate each other's relation to health behavior. Second, effect and cognition can moderate the other's impact. Fourth, effect and cognition may be indelibly fused in some psychological constructs, e.g. worry, anticipated regret, and reactance. These four propositions in our framework are not mutually exclusive. Conclusion: examination of the types of complex relations described here can benefit theory development, empirical testing of theories, and intervention design. Doing so will advance the understanding of mechanisms involved in regulation of health behaviors and the effectiveness of interventions to change health behaviors. Keywords: effect, cognition, health behavior, relations among variables. A 55-year-old man is considering having a colonoscopy to screen for colorectal cancer. On hearing about the procedure's potential benefits and harms, he focuses on the possibility of bowel perforation, becomes afraid, and does not get screened. A 12-year-old girl is deciding whether to use her remaining lunch money to get an apple or to save the money for an ice cream cone. She finds herself both remembering the health benefits of fruit and veg edible consumption. She decides to save her lunch money and get the ice cream later. These examples share common features that define the scope of this paper. First, in each the outcome is either a health behavior or an intention to engage in a health behavior. Second, in each case determinants of that outcome are a combination of thoughts, e.g. the health benefits of the apple, and feelings, e.g. fear about the colonna. Scopy procedure regarding the potential behavior. Researchers theorize about situations in which a health behavior is determined by some. Asterisk corresponding author. Email mtk8@buffalo.edu. mtk8@buffalo.edu. Copyright 2017 Informa UK Limited. Trading as Taylor and Francis Group. Psychology and Health. 2017 https://doi.org/10.1080/0887 0444973. Combination of affect/feelings and cognition/thoughts. When affect and cognition combine to influence health behavior, what is the nature of that combination? Below, we provide a framework with 4 different types of relations between affect and cognition that researchers might consider when theorizing about these constructs as motivators of health behavior and when developing interventions to change health behaviors. Our focus will be on affects and cognitions that are linked to or evoked by a health behavior, e.g. fearful activity, or a health threat, e.g. worry about acquiring a sexual transmitted disease, knowledge of the causes of heart disease. The types of constructs considered in our framework take a variety of forms, e.g. knowledge, beliefs, attitudes, fear, worry, and pleasure. The common feature is that the effect or cognition is about, associated with, or evoked by the threat or health behavior. When we use the terms affect, feelings, or affective influences, we generally refer to either a diffuse, valenced arousal state, e.g. feeling good, or specific, labeled and valenced arousal state, e.g. happiness, fear, anger, contentment, the classic definition of an emotion. In a few cases, the distinction between affective states and emotions is important, but by and large our framework treats the two constructs as interchangeable. When we use the terms cognitions, thoughts, or cognitive influences, we refer to the class of social cognitive variables that are included in many health behavior models, such as perceived susceptibility to harm, perceived benefits of the behavior, and self-efficacy. And cognitive constructs that are not tied to a specific health behavior or health threat, e.g. incidental effect or mood. Ferrer et al., 2015, Lerner, Lee, Baldasolo, and Kassem, 2015. Much of the early foundational work on determinants of health behavior had a strongly cognitive focus. For discussion, see Cavigini, Bos-Humphey, and Seifert, 2007, Manstead and Parker, 1995, Van der Plicht, Zeelenberg, Van Dyke, De Vries, and Richard, 1997, beliefs and perceived norms. Over the past 10 to 15 years, scientists have increasingly recognized the importance of effect in understanding health behavior. Desteno, Gross, and Kozanski, 2013, Lerner et al., 2015. It is unlikely at this juncture that anyone would argue that affective factors do not play a role in regulation of many health behaviors. However, the intricacies and complexities of the role of affect within the context of motivating health behavior have been underappreciated in interplay of affect and cognition. Most work on the role of affect and cognition in motivating health behavior has taken an isolated main effects approach, see Figure 1a. For example, fear of a medical procedure influences the likelihood of undergoing the procedure and beliefs about the benefits of engaging in a behavior influence the likelihood of doing so, e.g. Denberg et al., 2005, Dunton and Vaughn, 2008, Jandorf et al., 2010. This work acts and does not address their interplay, beyond potentially including both in a multivariable model, e.g. modeling affective components of attitudes in addition to cognition, Agin and Driver, 1991, 1992. Furthermore, some work considers thoughts and feelings as competitive influences, examining which of the two has the stronger influence on behavior, e.g. relative strength of affective versus cognitive attitude components as predictors of health behaviors, Lawton, Connor, and McEachin, 2009, Lawton, Connor, and Parker, do not. Consider possible interconnections of thought and feeling. 2 metric tons Cavigini et al. Considering only main effects unnecessarily limits our understanding of them. Complex and intersecting ways in which thoughts and feelings influence health behaviors. Broadening our theorizing to consider a wider range of both theoretically. Figure 1. Types of relations between affective and cognitive constructs. Psychology and statistically plausible mechanisms for the intersection of cognition and affective influences on behavior has great many health behavior and are public health goals of effectively intervening to encourage healthier behavioral practices. Framework for considering the effect-cognition interplay. In the following sections of the paper, we consider several important complex relations between cognition and affect in detail. We first examine mediated relations. Address relation to health behavior, i.e. affect mediating a cognition-behavior relation or cognition mediating an affect-behavior relation. Next, we examine relations where either affect or cognition moderates the other's effect on health behavior. Finally, we examine two additional complexities: context as an influence on the interplay of affect and cognition in situations where affect and cognition may not be separable constructs, see Figure 1. Notably, the types of relations considered in this framework are not mutually exclusive. Given the behavioral regulation, it is possible that multiple types of relations could be involved in determining engagement in a particular health behavior. Mediation. A plausible type of complex interplay between cognition and affect is serial mediation, in which one construct's influence on behavior is more distal/indirect and mediated by the other construct. Two basic possible types of mediation models are: 1. Affect preceding cognition models, in which cognition mediates the association between affect, in which affect mediates the relation between cognitions and health behavior, see Figure 1b. The literature contains empirical support for both models, and we believe that the two are not mutually exclusive. Affect preceding cognition model. Several theorists have argued that individuals may develop their cognitions towards health behaviors based on their initial affective reactions, an affect preceding cognition model. The affective heuristic, developed by Paul Slovic and colleagues, suggests that risk perception guide your gut level affective feelings of risk. Following this gut level response, those affective feelings then shape their cognitive perceptions of risk, e.g., I'm feeling scared when I consider this hazard, so I must be at high risk for experiencing it. Slovic, Finucane, Peters, and McGregor, 2002-2004. An experiment examining vaccination behavior provides empirical support for this type of mediational model, finding that fear increased perceived severity, a health cognition, which in turn increased willingness to get vaccinated. Moss, 16. Further, supporting this model are two studies finding that graphic cigarette pack warnings increased negative affective reactions that subsequently were associated with cognitions. For metric tons Cavigniani et al. And outcomes, including risk perceptions and quid intentions, Emery, Romer, Shearing, Jameson, and Peters, 2014, Evans et al., 2015. Cognition preceding affect model. Other Cavigniani et al., 2007, proposed a behavioral affective associations model in which cognitions generate affective reactions that then motivate behavior. In addition to positing that affect mediates the relation between cognitions and behavior, the model proposes that affect can also guide behavior independent of cognitions. Empirical support for this model includes cross-sectional studies of physical activity, Cavigniani et al., 2007, fruit and vegetable consumption, Cavigniani and Duondo, 2015, Cavigniani, Gendorf, and Irwin, 2014. Supporting both the specified mediational models and the causal relations between affect and behavior, experimental manipulations of affective associations lead to changes in subsequent health behaviors, and they do so without any accompanying cognitive beliefs. Ellis, Holmish, Park, Collins, and Cavigniani, 2015, Walsh, and Cavigniani, 2014. This example, where affect is the more immediate/direct guide to behavior, but is inconsistent with the affect preceding cognition model. More recently, here, Van Den Cuddy and Nagins, 2012, concluded that effective evaluation of health behaviors partially mediated the influence of attitudes and perceived behavioral control on intentions. Similar mediational paths have been shown for the relation of cognitive and affective components of risk and sunscreen use, Cavigniani and Ellis, 2014, cervical cancer screening, Zhao and Nan, 2006. Implications. These mediational models suggest that understanding both the origins and operations of both cognitive and affective influences on behavior necessitates consideration of the temporal order of affect and cognition. In the affect preceding cognition models, affect serves an informational role, guiding the content and valence of subsequent cognitions, Schwartz and Floor, 1983. By contrast, the cognition preceding affect models focus on effect in the signaling role, and Diefenbach, 2006, affect-type associations with behavior signal the appropriateness of engaging in the behavior, with more positive affective associations signaling a motivation to engage in the behavior and more negative associations signaling a desire to avoid engagement. The available theoretical support and empirical evidence for both temporal relations also underscores the need to test both models, especially when theorizing about mechanisms for behavior change, as the mechanisms suggested by each type of model quite different. Finally, this difference in models supports the need for longitudinal studies and experimental studies, e.g. Ellis et al., 2015, Moss et al., 2016, Walsh and Caviniemi, 2014, which provides stronger evidence for mediational pathways than cross-sectional studies, McKinnon, Fairchild, and Fritz, 2007. In the end, it is likely that both models are useful, and we need to identify the specific circumstances that determine under what conditions each model best functions. Psychology and Health 5. Moderation, the strength and direction of the relation between cognitions and health behavior can vary depending on the feelings associated with the behavior, and the strength and direction of the relation between effect and health behavior may likewise depend on cognition. See Figure 1c. Although statistically these two statements are equivalent, each would be modeled by a cognition by effect interaction term with behavior as the outcome. The distinction is conceptually meaningful. Consideration of moderating mechanisms typically included, i.e. the hypothesis mechanism for regulation of the behavior, and another construct is a moderating influence on that mechanism. Thus, hypothesizing that effect moderates a cognitive mechanism makes different assumptions about the nature of behavior regulation than does hypothesizing that cognition moderates an effective mechanism, even though the two are statistically equivalent. Effect, such as anticipatory worry, can moderate the relation between cognitions and health behaviors. Several studies show that other cognitions on health behavior and ultimately reduce engagement in those behaviors. Ferrer, Bergman, and Klein, 2013. Ferrer, Portnoy, and Klein, 2013. Klein, Zajac, and Monin, 2009. For instance, findings from cross-sectional national surveys suggest that worry about cancer moderates the association between cognitively based risk perceptions and health behaviors. Among people with low levels of worry about cancer, cognitive risk perception, perceived likelihood, was not associated with worried a lot. Higher perceived likelihood of cancer was associated with less engagement in the behavior. Ferrer et al., 2013. Similarly, high levels of worry weaken the associa. Tie-ins between cognitions such as self-efficacy and perceived benefits of fruits and vegetables and the motivation to purchase them. Ferrer et al., 2013, and high levels of worry led to a negative association between cognitive risk perceptions and intentions to quit among adult smokers in a longitudinal study. Klein et al. Moderate the association between worry and health behavior. Among patients with diabetes, cognitive risk perceptions about heart disease moderated the association between worry and intentions to exercise such that the relative between worry and intentions was stronger for participants with higher cognitive perceived risk than those with lower perceived risk. Portnoy, Kaufman, Klein, Doyle, and de Groot, 2014. In another study, cancer worry was associated with avoiding doctors only when cognitive perceived risk of cancer was high. These findings suggest that affect, cognition, and their interaction can influence health behaviors. Studying only main effects lead to erroneous conclusions about when and for whom each construct is associated with behavior. Experimental evidence suggests that effective components of health messages may influence overall message effectiveness and moderate the relation of cognition and health behavior, including effect eliciting elements or delivering the information in narrative or testimonial format can enhance message effectiveness and elicit stronger effects on targeted behavioral. 6 metric tons Caviniemi et al. Outcomes, Burns, Latham, and Lowenstein, 2007, Keir, Van den Putty, DeWitt, and Natans, 2013, Keir, Van den Putty, Natans, and DeWitt, 2013. In a study aimed at increasing colorectal cancer screening, messages framed in terms of what conditions, compared to messages framed in terms of what could be lost by not screening, unless they were also paired with a complementary effective booster that asked individuals to vividly imagine how they would feel if they got screened. Ferrer, Klein, Zajac, Land, and Ling, 2012. This effective booster increased the effectiveness of the gained range messages to be comparable to that of the lost range messages. These findings suggest that careful consideration of the way in which effect moderates other messaging components can allow for a more nuanced understanding of the et al. 2012, context and framing, Burns et al. 2007, needed to be effective for specific population subgroups. Contextualized effects. The role of affect and cognition in shaping health behavior may depend on contextual factors. Here, we consider 5 possible contextual influences on the role of affect and cognition on behavior: the behavior itself, other social cognitive factors, culture, the nature of the affective construct, and the type. Most of this work is centered on how these factors shape the main effects of cognition and affect rather than their interplay. First, the size of the effects of affect and cognition on behavior may depend on the type of health behavior. Theorists have conceptualized attitudes as having cognitive and affective components that represent beliefs and feelings, respectively, about the attitude object. Breckler, 1984. Affective attitudes are weak predictors of vitamin use and toothbrushing, and strong predictors of fruit and vegetable consumption, alcohol use, smoking, and exercise. Lawton et al., 2009. For example, beliefs that exercise is enjoyed, able, pleasant, or fun, positive affective attitudes are stronger predictors of behavior than beliefs about the health benefits of exercising. Connor, Rhodes, Morris, McEachin, and Lawton, 2011, Lowe, Eves, and Carroll, 2002, Rhodes, Fiala, and Connor, 2009. Risk perceptions may have distinct cognitive and affective components. Farrer, Klein, 16, and the magnitude and relation of each component to health behavior depends on the disease context and prior experience with the behavior. Caffrey and Schneider, 2000, Chapman and Coos, 2006, Schmida, Bryan, and Klein, 2009, Shiloh, Wade, Roberts, Alford, and Wieseker, 2013. For instance, individuals who are actively engaged in a health protective behavior, such as cancer screening, often have the highest levels of worry and perceived risk about the health threat, e.g. Hay, Coos, and protective BHA. Buyers have the lowest values of perceived risk and worry, Brennan and Pascott, 2000. Relatedly, the amount of experience with risky health behaviors, e.g. having sex, cigarette smoking, influences the nature of adolescents' effectively based goals for engaging in the behavior. Caffrey and Schneider, 2000. Behaviors may also differ in the type of feelings they elicit. For instance, evidence suggests smoking behavior is most strongly associated with anticipated regret, whereas beliefs, Jensen, Waters, Van Osh, Lechner, and DeVries. Psychology and Health 7. 2014. These differences in the magnitude, type, and relative importance of affective and cognitive predictors may have consequential effects on the behavior under study. Second, other social cognitive constructs may also determine the influence of affect relative to cognition on health behavior. The influence of affective factors tends to increase when people experience ambivalence or when affective and cognitive, and Borgaida, 1998, Lawton et al., 2009. This tendency may help explain why people engage in risky behaviors that are perceived as enjoyable but unwise. Lowenstein, Weber, C., and Welch, 2001. Affective factors are also more influential than cognitive factors when cognitive resources are depleted, such as when people are tired or hungry. Hoffman, DeHauer, Perugini, Bayens, and Crombez, 2010, Hoffman, Fries, and Brooks, 2009. Associated with a stronger effect of implicit effect relative to implicit cognition on food. Choices, Trendle and Worrell, 2016. Research on intertemporal choice and impulsivity shows that affective factors can drive seeking of short-term gains, whereas cognitive factors help one focus on more long-term gains. Lowenstein, 1996, Metcalf and Mischel, 1999. Interestingly, the perceived passage of time varies considerably depending ING, option, and anxiety have all been associated with perceived slowing of time and overestimation of duration. Whitman and Paulus, 2008. Thus, there may be a complex interplay between affective processes and intertemporal choice as predictors of health behaviors. Similarly, greater need for effect, defined as a motivation to approach emotion-inducing situations, Mayo and Desies, 2001, increases the relative influence of affective factors on behavior. Connor et al., 2011, Feiner, McKinley, Wilkening, Weber, 4. Conversely, dispositional tendencies to avoid effect are associated with stronger associations between cognitive predictors, such as deliberative risk perceptions and behavioral intentions. Ferrer, Klein, Prasovsky, Avishayitchak, and Sheeran, 2016. Third, goals of affect and cognition. Cultural differences exist in the ways that social and contextual factors shape food-related effect. Luomala, Syriac, and Tapir. 2009 Eating Behavior, Sirlin and Dubay, 2002, 2005, Luomala et al., 2009. For instance, affective influences, e.g. sensory and pleasurable attributes, and cognitive beliefs, e.g. healthfulness, about food show greater consistency in China than in the United States or France, Sirlin and Dubay, 2002. Perhaps as a result, in the United States affective factors more strongly guide food choices than do cognitive factors, Kaviniemi and Juondo, 2009. Were influence, Sirlin and Dubay, 2005. As another example, there are cultural differences. In ideal effect, the feelings one would prefer to feel. Whereas European American adults prefer high arousal, positive affective states like excitement and elation, Chinese and Chinese American adults prefer low arousal, positive affective states like calm and peaceful, sigh, nuisance, and fun, 2006. These differences in ideal effect in turn influence behavior, ideal affective states, which lead European Americans to be more likely to engage in high arousal leisure activities like running, sigh, 2007. With respect to culture and cognitive decision-making influences, Chinese adults engage in greater temporal discounting, placing less value on more distal outcomes for potential gains than do American adults, Gong, Krantz, and Weber, 2014. Chinese adults also use relatively more rule-based decision-making processes, Weber, Ames, and Blaze, 2005. 8 metric tons Kaviniemi et al. Fourth, the effect and cognition-specific construct studies are likely to influence the strength of associations with health behavior. Researchers have made several distinctions between different types of effect. Desteno et al., 2013, and the effect-cognition interplay in relation to behavior may depend on the type of effect under consideration. Ivings and Kardaji, 2007, Trendle and Borel, 2016. Studies suggest anticipated emotions are more strongly on 2008, Ferrer et al., 2015, and effective attitudes, White, Horwith, and Connor, 2013. In another study, anticipated regret and worry both mediated the effects of perceived risk on influenza vaccination, but they influenced subsequent vaccination decisions differently, Chapman and Coos, 2006. Likewise, the appraisal tendency framework suggests the decisional and behavioral effects of discrete emotions, e.g. anger, sadness, depend on appraisals, which vary across discrete emotions of the same valence. Anger is associated with action orientations and greater risk propensity. By contrast, fear is instead associated with an avoidance orientation and motivation to mitigate risk. Ferrer, Klein, Lerner, Reina, and Keltner, 2015, Lerner and Keltner, 2000. Moreover, effects of self-control and other moderators of the effect-behavior relation depend on whether effect is explicit or implicit. Ellis, Collins, Trendle and Borel, 2016. Effects also depend on whether effect reflects self-conscious, e.g. regret, guilt, or hedonic emotions, e.g. enjoyment, excitement. Hino-Sarala, 2001. Although the primary focus of this paper is on actual behavioral engagement as the outcome variable, a final contextual factor, the type of outcome measure, should be acknowledged. In many studies, both affective and cognitive attitudes are associated with behavioral intentions, but affective attitudes also have direct effects. Behaviors independent of behavioral intentions, Chai and Li, in Press, Desteno et al. 2013, Lawton et al., 2009. Therefore, studies that use behavioral outcomes, rather than intentions, may find stronger associations with effect than with cognition. Implications. Identifying how context shapes the relative importance of effect and cognition may be particularly important when interventions can be tailored to account for contextual elements, e.g. Ferrer, 1999. For instance, studies suggest health messages that emphasize effective information, e.g. physical activity can make you feel cheerful, can increase the influence of effect and thus elicit greater health behavior change than cognitively based messages. Connor et al., 2011, Dillard, Fagerman, CIN, Zickman Fisher, and Jubel, 2010, Fabregar and Petty, 1999, Jansen, Van Osch, De Vries, and Lechner, 2013, Jansen, Van Osch, Lechner, and De Vries, 2015, may moderate effective messages effectiveness. For physical activity interventions, effective messages were particularly influential among participants with higher for effect, Connor et al., 2011, and low levels of baseline activity, Syria, Lawton, and Ward, 2010. Exploring how context shapes the interplay between effect and cognition remains an important research area. Doing so may identify conditions under which effect more strongly or vice versa. This focus on the influence of context has the potential to further our understanding of the mechanisms involved in the interplay of effect and cognition as influences on behavior. Psychology and Health 9. When effect and cognition mix to this point, our analysis has considered thoughts and feelings as separate constructs. However, several important constructs that motivate health behavior may blend cognitine and effect to some extent. Indeed, the distinction between effect and cognition Arson, 2007, Davidson, 2003, Duncan and Barrett, 2007, Eder, Hummel, and DeHauer, 2007, Phelps, 2005. Lowenstein and colleagues, 2001, draw a distinction between anticipatory effect, act to ally experiencing a feeling when considering a behavioral action or health risk, e.g., thinking about a colonoscopy and feeling disgust, and anticipated effect, having the expectancy that one will experience an emotion if one engages in a behavior, e.g., the condom. With respect to anticipatory effect, consider worry associated with health behavior. Byers, including screening for breast cancer, Hay, McCall, and Magnin, 2006. Worry can be thought of as an affective process, a bad feeling of concern, or an effect-laden cognitive process, perseverating on the future, turning things over in one's mind in an obsessive way that results in negative effects. Both conceptualizations link effect and cognition and involve effective outcome. With respect to anticipated effect, consider anticipated regret, a potent motivator of health behavior that can be stronger than other types of anticipated effect, Brewer, DeFrank, and Gilkey, 2016. Anticipating regret of not vaccinating should motivate getting vaccinated as people seek to avoid feeling regret in the future. The anticipation is a largely cognitive event, but the act of envisioning future effects likely entails some experience of the emotion in the present. Reactance is a third example of a concept. Twined. In reactance, people who perceive a threat to freedom react with anger and act to discredit the threat, Dillard and Shin, 2005, Hall et al., 2016. Although reactance involves distinct affective and cognitive dimensions, anger, perceived threat to freedom, counter-arguing, these dimensions are typically highly correlated. Some studies have shown that reactance undermines motivation to quit smoking, e.g. Hall et al., 2016, but studies have not yet examined the impact of. The important observation about each of these mixed constructs is that the literature treats them as simple, unidimensional entities, even though each mixes effect and cognition to some extent. Barrett has warned that research based on emotion words and categories such as anger or fear may not get to the heart of the matter, and may instead create artificial affect categories unrelated to the underlying biology and neuroscience. Barrett, 2006. Thus, we may need to be cautious when considering models that treat thoughts and cases. The two may be intertwined and inseparable. Discussion. The purpose of this paper is to provide a framework for different types of relations between cognitive and affective influences that should be considered when theorizing about their possible effects on health behavior and for the development of intervention approaches to change people's health behaviors. We contend that the respective roles 10 metric tons Cavigni et al. Of effect and cognition in health decision making have many nuanced ways in which effect and cognition interrelate in driving health behavior. In particular, our framework addresses moderating and mediating roles of effect, and the interplay between cognitive and affective influences. Affective experiences such as worry and fear can both precede and follow cognition, such as attitudes, with potentially important implications for behavior. Moreover, affect and cognition can each moderate effects of the other, an important point given issues of interpreting main effects when interactions are present. Affect and cognition. Finally, affect and cognition can be blended in constructs such as reactance, highlighting perhaps even more the importance of examining the complexity of their effects. Because our framework is focused on the interplay of effect and cognition as motivators of health behavior, it does not touch upon the role of effect in shaping information processing. Peters et al., 2006. First, effect provides information. People may consult their emotions, associated with certain choices. Second, effect can act as a spotlight, drawing attention to particular information. How strongly we feel about an object may make salient different types of information, i.e. benefits or risks. Additionally, we do not address the possibility that affect may act as a confounding third variable that confounds the relation between motivation. Here. Implications for studying health behavior. The shift in focus towards considering the complex interplay between affect and cognition, as well as developing theoretical models for understanding behavioral regulation. One key applied cation is that researchers should routinely examine the types of complex relations that we describe herein. Although such an approach can increase the numbers of tests and therefore family-wide error, this concern is outweighed by the countervailing concern that main effects only models underspecify the real underlying complexity in behavior. As long as such tests are considered and reported as post hoc rather than a priori predictions, exploring them can add value and mediating influences. Even better than post hoc inclusion would be including complex relations in a PRI or a theorizing and hypothesis generation. We would strongly suggest that such relations be thoughtfully considered in theory development. In the context of moderating and mediating mechanisms, both types of relations lead to different hypotheses and different implications about the kinds of mechanisms through which cognitive and affective influences drive health behavior, as well as explanations and the nature of the interplay between effect and cognition. Considering these influences conceptually when developing theories and pushing the envelope of our thinking about influences on behavior can only strengthen the creativity and potential utility of our theories. For related perspectives on pushing the thinking envelope, see McGuire, 1997, 2004. Finally, if indeed the interplay between effect and cognition drives health behavior, it is crucial to understand how to manipulate each independent of the other in order to obtain relatively pure estimates of the effect of each and their interaction. Although one meta-analysis reviewed studies that have unwittingly observed changes in one and not the other, i.e. worry but not risk perception, Portnoy, Ferrer, Bergman, and Klein, 2014, we are not aware of any published research that attempts to manipulate each construct independently. Likewise, future research will need to consider how one might examine multiple affective and cognitive constructs in a particular setting. For parsimonial relations between one type however, the focus on effect might leave relatively unaddressed potentially synergistic roots. Because our framework is focused on the interplay of effect and cognition as motivators of health behavior, it does not touch upon the role of effect in shaping information processing. Peters et al., 2006. First, effect provides information associated with certain choices and developed through experience to make a decision. Second, effect can act as a spotlight, drawing attention to particular information. How strongly we feel about an object may make salient different types of information, i.e. benefits or risks. Additionally, we do not address the possibility that effects may act as a confounding third variable that confounds the relation between motivation and actual behavior. Implications for studying health behavior. The shift in focus towards considerable implications for conducting health behavior research as well as developing theoretical models for understanding behavioral regulation. One key applied cation is that researchers should routinely examine the types of complex relations that we describe herein. Although such an approach can increase the numbers of tests and therefore family-wide error, this concern is outweighed by the countervailing concern that main effects only models underspecify the real underlying complexity in behavior. As long as such tests are considered and reported as post hoc rather than a pre-original theoretical model did not include moderating and mediating influences. Even better than post hoc inclusion would be including complex relations in a PRI or a theorizing and hypothesis generation. We would strongly suggest that such relations be thoughtfully considered in theory development. In the context of moderating and mediating mechanisms, both types of relations lead to different hypotheses and different implications about the kinds of mechanisms through which cognitive explanations about the motivations driving individuals to engage in behavior and the nature of the interplay between effect and cognition. Considering these influences conceptually when developing theories and pushing the envelope of our thinking about influences on behavior can only strengthen the creativity and potential utility of our theories. For related perspectives on pushing the thinking envelope, see McGuire, 1997, 2004. Finally, if indeed the interplay between effect and cognition drives health behavior, it is crucial to understand how to manipulate. Psychology and Health 11. Obtain relatively pure estimates of the effect of each and their interaction. Although one meta-analysis reviewed studies that have unwittingly observed changes in one and not the other, i.e. worry, but not risk perception, Portnoy, Farrer, or any published research that attempts to manipulate each construct independently. Likewise, future research will need to consider how one might examine multiple. For parsimony, our paper has focused on rather simple interactions or temporal relations between one type of effect, e.g. fear, and one type of cognition, e.g. belief, but it is obvious that the real state of affairs is more complex. For example, fear about having a genetic marker for disease may influence attitudes about getting a genetic test, but only if one believes that similar others are doing so. Read et al., manuscript under review. To the extent that we understand this complex interplay, we can explain implications for interventions. Many interventions seek to change either cognition or effect in order to encourage a health behavior. Naturally, an understanding of how effect and cognition interrelate could increase the efficacy and reach of such interventions. For example, the use of GRA-FIC warnings is an example of a policy-level intervention that uses images to enhance health messages with negative effect. Graphic warnings have been shown to increase knowledge, negative effect, and smoking cessation. 16. However, the focus on effect might leave relatively unaddressed potentially synergistic routes targeting cognitive processes. By the same token, interventions designed solely to change cognition, such as beliefs and self-efficacy, might be more effective to the extent that they consider and incorporate effect. Over and above simply considering both cognitive and effective processes in Vention design, developers of intervention techniques should consider the various types of more complex relations. If behavior change is driven by the interaction between cognition and effect, an interventionist should either develop techniques to change both constructs or to pre-screen participants to ensure that their standing on the moderating construct is of a nature to ensure that the targeted mechanism leads to a change in behavior. Similar issues would be involved in addressing many of the contextualized mechanisms discussed above. Mediational relations also need to be considered in intervention development. If an intervention technique targets the more distal, indirect causal intervention effectiveness will be the strength of the relation between the targeted construct and the mediator, as well as the strength of the relation between the mediator and the behavior. The dose or strength of the intervention technique will need to be sufficient to lead to a meaningful change in the behavior given the strength of each of the linkages along the mediational chain. When an intervention targets the intervening/mediating variable in the chain, the strength of the relations in the full mediational model is less of a concern, but the interventionist has a target the mediator, but another option is to create conjoint interventions that seek to address both the distal and the proximal/mediating variable. To our knowledge, such approaches have not been developed and would require empirical testing, but should be considered given the nature of the more complex causal associations involved in the mediational models. 12 metric tons Cavigini et al. Concluding thoughts, our paper highlights 4 ways in which effect and cognition can influence health behavior in ways that are independent effects. In other approaches to understanding decision-making and health behavior, many dual processing models have emerged that posit independent streams, such as hot and cold cognition and System 1 and System 2 thinking, Chaikin and Trope, 1999. These models do not necessarily provide a foundation for understanding how the dual processes interact and influence each other. Consequently, pursuing the interrelations of effect and cognition in determining health behavior may also provide a working model for how to investigate cognition. Moreover, research like that proposed here goes beyond the debate of whether effect precedes cognition or vice versa, Zhejiang, 1980. 1984, and instead considers that both temporal models are possible and have distinct, meaningful implications for behavior. We also wish to emphasize that the research for which we advocate can simultaneously advance basic understanding of human behavior and address real-world health issues consistent with the vision of Pasteur's quadrant. Stowe, 1990, the world are attributable to a short list of behaviors that includes tobacco use, sedentary behavior, poor diet, and alcohol abuse. Mockdad, Mark, Stroop, and Gerberding, 2004. These health behaviors have been shown to follow affective states, such as craving and cognition, such as risk perceptions. To the extent that we understand how we might integrate these affective states and cognitive influences into a more nuanced model of health behavior, we can achieve the concomitant public health goals of reducing mortality and enriching our theories and scientific understanding. understanding. Oil, 2015. Disclosure statement. No potential conflict of interest was reported by the authors. Orchid Noel T. Brewer, http://orchid.org/0003-0003-2241-7002. http://orchid.org/0003-2241-7002 reference. Adjunct I. and Driver, B. L. 1991. Prediction of leisure participation from behavioral, normative, and control beliefs, an application of the theory of planned behavior. Leisure Sciences, 13, 185 to 204. Adjunct I. and Driver, B. L. 1992. Application of the theory of planned behavior to leisure choice. Journal of Leisure Research, 24, 207. The Association of Positive Emotion and First Smoking Labs. An ecological momentary assessment study. 3. 6 Georgia State, 7 Southern Illinois. Abstract. Abstract. Objective, individuals attempting to quit smoking typically have poor success rates, and the majority fail to maintain long-term abstinence. Although a large body of evidence documents the impact of the body of research on positive emotions, which could be an important mechanism that is associated with successful cessation. As such, this study examined positive emotions in real time via ecological momentary assessment, EMA, in order to determine whether discrete positive emotions were uniquely related to 2 cessation milestones: quit day lapse and first lapse. Method: participants were 391 smokers who received tobacco cessation treatment. EMAs were completed pre and post-quit, and positive emotion and relapsed, rated on 5-point Likert scales. Analyses examined the associations of the means and slopes of each emotion on the current day with the likelihood of lapse on the following day. Results: when controlling for relevant covariates, pre-quit positive emotions were not related to quit day lapse. However, post-quit positive emotions were associated with first lapse. Specifically, high levels of happiness and relaxation, as well as increasing levels of enthusiasm, happiness, and relaxation were related to conclusions. These are some of the first real-time, real-world data to demonstrate that distinct positive emotions are associated with a lower risk of lapse during the post-quit period among smokers attempting to quit. Corresponding author, Christine Vinci, PhD, Moffitt Cancer Center, Health Outcomes and Behavior, 4115 East Fowler Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33617, phone 813-745-5421, fax 813-449, email.com, christine.vinci@moffitt.org. HHS Public Access. Author Manuscript Health Cycle Author Manuscript. Available in PMC November 1st, 2018. Published in final edited form as Health Cycle, 2017 November 36, 11/10/38 to 10/46. Joy 10.1037/T00000535. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Keyword: smoking cessation, positive emotions, ecological momentary assessment. Despite significant progress in reducing the prevalence of cigarette smoking, it remains the leading preventable cause of morbidity and mortality in the U.S. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, USDHHS, 2014. Although approximately 70% of smokers indicate that they want to quit, and over 6.2% of smokers successfully quit each year, CDC, 2011. Thus, identifying specific factors that are associated with successful cessation could inform cessation treatments and help these individuals become tobacco-free. Positive emotions are one potential, albeit understudied, mechanism that may be associated with successful cessation. A positive emotion can be defined as a subjectively pleasant experience that functions as an internal signal to approach or continue Duran et al. 2006. Many theoretical models of addiction focus on the role of negative effects. Example, effective model of drug motivation. Baker, Piper, McCarthy, Majewski, and Fiore, 2004. Tension reduction mock successful cessation could inform cessation treatments and help these individuals become tobacco-free. Nonetheless, several models of health behavior have linked positive emotions to resiliency and the management of stress, which may be particularly relevant for someone attempting to quit. McCarthy, Piasecki, Fiore, and Baker. 1998, Rodman-Bild theory posits that positive emotions are associated with resiliency, which is linked to better health and health outcomes. Fredrickson, 1998, Fredrickson, 2004. Zotra and colleagues, 2001, Dynamic Model of Effect proposes that positive effect, PA, is a unique resource that when present, may aid in the management of stressful situations. Multiple studies have found that high positive emotions in general PA are associated with behavior change, including the management of chronic pain, binge eating behaviors, Castonguay, Pincus, Agros, and Hines, 1998, self-control, Winchurch and Haas, 2011, and engagement in prosocial behaviors, Destino, 2009. Research examining the role of positive emotions in smoking cessation is fairly sparse and focused on general PA. This work has found that higher levels of PA are associated with better cessation outcomes. Alapsi, Hatsukami, Davis, and Whitmers, 2004, Duran et al. 2000, and Taylor, 2008. For instance, 103 smokers enrolled in a cessation trial tracked their daily mood for 3 days pre-quit. Results indicated that although pre-quit levels of PA were not related to smoking status on quit day, higher levels of pre-quit PA were associated with abstinence through the 26-week post-quit period. Duran et al., 2006. Leventhal and colleagues, 2008, examined PA from questionnaire data completed prior to participants beginning cessation treatment. Participant drinkers. Results indicated that higher pre-quit PA was. Vinci et al. Page 2. Health Cycle author manuscript, available in PMC November 1st, 2018. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Associated with abstinence from smoking above and beyond negative effects, smoking dependence, and depression level through the 26-week follow-up. Individuals who maintained abstinence for the first week of quitting reported higher levels of PA within the first 24 hours of quitting when compared to participants who lapsed during the first week. Data on PA collected at the end of quit day via retrospective self-report, Alapsi et al., 2004. The current study builds on this foundation of work. First, studies examining PA and smoking cessation to date have generally used retrospective self-report methods for assessing PA, Alapsi et al., 2005, Leventhal et al., 2008. Numerous biases and errors, Hammersley, 1994, Shatter, 1999, Shatter, Chow, and Mitchell, 2003, and the present study addresses this issue by collecting data in real time in the real world with ecological momentary assessment, EMA, Schiffman, Stone, and Hufford, 2008, Stone and Schiffman, 1994. Second, the research on PA and cessation has examined PA as a general construct, but has not investigated specific discrete emotions that comprise PA. Happiness. Scientists have begun calling for the increased study of discrete emotions. Ferrer, Green, and Barrett, 2015. Pressman and Cohen, 2005, as data show that discrete emotions differentially influence behavior and decision-making, cognition, and physiological responses. Destino et al., 2013. Ferrer et al., 2015. Levinson, Ekman, and Friesen, 1990. Smith and Ellsworth, 1985. Further, this literature has identified several individual emotions that comprise PA 94, found psychometric support for several positive affect scales that were comprised of individual positive emotions such as happy, confident, determined, relaxed, enthusiastic, surprised, and so on. When examining the literature on discrete emotions, happiness is the most studied. Aspect of PA with respect to health outcomes, Considine and Moskowitz, 2007, Pressman and Cohen, 2005. Other emotions, such as gratitude, pride, and non-health related behavior, Destino, 2009, McCullough, Shelley, Emmons, and Larson, 2001, Winchurch and Haas, 2009. Although research examining the role of discrete positive emotions on health outcomes is limited, findings from these studies suggest that discrete emotions likely have differential effects on behavior and health. Destino et al., 2013, Ferrer et al., 2015. Third, previous studies have typically examined how PA relates to long-term cessation outcomes. lapse risk during quit attempt. Prior research has established that most individuals relapse early in the quitting process, with more than half relapsing within the first week. Example, Shipman et al., 2000, Zhu, Stretch, Balabani, Rosbrook, Sadler, and Pierce, 1996. As noted by Shipman et al., 2006, only examining long-term cessation outcomes can limit our ability to understand what is happening during the initial phases of a quit attempt, and focusing on specific cessation milestones. We examined how positive emotions relate to two cessation milestones: lapse on a quit day, termed quit day lapse, and is able to maintain abstinence on quit day, avoiding first lapse. During the first 4 weeks of a quit attempt, termed first lapse. Hence, we were able to study temporal associations in a more detailed manner. Vinci et al., page 3. Health Cycle author manuscript, available in PMC November 1st, 2018. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. The current study extends prior research by 1. Examining positive emotions in real time via EMA, and 2. Determining whether discrete positive emotions are uniquely related to two cessation milestones early in the quit attempt, quit day lapse, and first lapse. We hypothesized that higher levels of discrete positive emotions would be associated with a lower likelihood of quit day lapse. Method. Participants. Participants were part of a longitudinal cohort study that examined the effects of race/ethnicity and social/environmental influences on smoking cessation. Participants were recruited from the Houston, Texas area through community outreach and media. All participants received smoking cessation treatment, which consisted of self-help materials, the nicotine patch, and counseling according to Treating Tobacco Use and Dependence Clinical Practice Guidelines, Fiore et al., 2008. Found in the procedure section. Participants were screened via phone and, if eligible, were enrolled in the study. Participants were eligible to participate if they were 1. 21 years of age or older, 2. A current smoker with a history of smoking an average of at least 5 cigarettes per day for the past year, 3. Motivated to quit smoking in the next 30 days, 4. Able to provide a home address and functioning telephone number, and 5. Able to speak, read, and write in English at or above the 6th grade level. Patch was contraindicated. 2. They had an active substance use disorder or dependence. 3. They reported the regular use of tobacco products other than cigarettes. 4. They used bupropion or nicotine replacement products other than the patch. 5. Another member of their household was enrolled in the study. Or 6. They reported participation in a cessation program or study in the past 90 days. This study was approved by the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center's Institutional Review Board. Procedures. Interested participants were screened via phone for inclusion/exclusion criteria. Eligible participants were then invited to an in-person screening and orientation session. At this session, a more detailed description of the study was provided and written informed consent was obtained. Next, participants completed self-report measures and expired carbon monoxide, CO, was assessed. Participants returned for their baseline visit, which occurred a week prior to their scheduled quit date. At this session, they were trained in nicotine patch and completed their first counseling session. Subsequent counseling sessions occurred on the quit date and at weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4 post-quit. Counseling sessions lasted for 10 to 20 minutes each and were scheduled to occur the same day as assessment visits. All participants received a 6-week supply of nicotine patches and were instructed to begin use on the quit date. Participants were compensated for each assessment session with a $30 gift card. Vinci et al. Page. Health Cycle author manuscript, available in PMC November 1st, 2018. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Participants were tracked from 1 week prior to their quit date through the 26-week post-quit day follow-up. EMA data presented here were taken from 4 days pre-quit through 28 days post-quit day. Measures. Demographic and tobacco age, race/ethnicity, partner status, and education level. Tobacco-related variables were cigarettes smoked per day and time to first cigarette upon waking in the morning. Ecological momentary assessment, EMA data were collected via URGE, SLIP, and random assessments on a Comtalk personal computer. We utilized data collected from 4 days pre-quit through 28 days post-quit. EMA questions consisted of items assessing smoking-related constructs, example, effect, to complete. Some examples included, I feel sad, response options from 1, strongly agree, 5, strongly disagree, I am confident in my ability not to smoke, response options from 1, strongly agree, 5, strongly disagree, since the last assessment, did you drink any alcohol? Response option yes/no, cigarettes are available to me, response options from 1, not at all available, 5, easily, is smoking allowed where you are? Response options, forbidden, discouraged, allowed, I have an urge to smoke, strongly disagree. For urge assessments, participants were instructed to complete an EMA whenever they experienced an urge to smoke. For slip assessments, participants were asked to complete an EMA whenever they smoked a cigarette. Random assessments consisted of random prompts set to participants 4 times each day. If participants could not immediately complete the EMA when prompted, they could delay answering the questions up to 4 times, totaling 20 minutes. Data from the urge and slip assessment data were used only to aid in determining smoking lapse. See below. Positive emotions. Participants responded to 3 statements assessing positive emotions each time they completed an EMA. Participants were asked to rate the following 3 statements on a 5-point Likert scale. 1 equals strongly disagree through 5 equals strongly agree. 1, I feel enthusiastic. 2, I feel happy. And 3, I feel relaxed. Part of the rationale for examining these 3 emotions is that they were derived from 2 Remedy, Watson and Clark, 1994. Given that EMAs are meant to be brief, we were limited in the number of discrete positive emotion items to include. However, given recent advances in effective science that indicate differential effects of distinct emotions on various outcomes, future research in this area should include a variety of positive emotions, including those positive emotions that have shown unique effects. Example, authentic pride, gratitude. Smoking lapse. To determine lapse status, both on the responses were utilized. If participants indicated smoking a cigarette via a random, slip, or urge assessment, they were considered to have lapsed on that day. Additionally, each morning participants were asked to complete a series of daily diaries. Vinci et al. Page 5. Health Cycle Author Manuscript, available in PNC November 1st, 2018. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Questions on their Comtop personal computer. If participants indicated having smoked on the previous day, they were coded as lapsed on that previous day. Analytic Plan Overview. The analyses consisted of both 1. Quit day lapse analysis examining whether pre-quit positive emotions were associated with lapse on quit day, and 2. Post-quit. First lapse analysis examining whether post-quit positive emotions were associated with first lapse on the following day, for participants who did not lapse on quit day. For pre-quit time period, day -4 though day -1, and for the post-quit time period, day 0, quit day, through first smoking lapse, on each positive emotion, enthusiastic, happy, relaxed. Each trajectory was estimated by the penalized spline model, Ruppert, Wand, and Harrell, 2003, which assumes that the trajectory is a smooth curve but with no other shape restrictions. The shape of the trajectory is completely data-driven according to the maximum likelihood principle for penalized splines. Ruppert of the longitudinal trajectories of happiness that were created for 6 different participants during the post-quit period using EMA data between the quit day and the first lapse. Quit day lapse analysis, logistic regression, was used to study the association between pre-quit positive emotions and risk of lapse on quit day. We utilized 2 approaches to analyze pre-quit positive emotions as predictors in the logistic regression. In approach 1, we were interested in whether positive emotions over the entire pre-quit period, day -1 on day 0. This approach used the average mean, overall level of positive emotions on that day. Higher values indicate higher positive emotions, and slope, overall temporal trend of positive emotions that day. Positive slopes indicating increasing positive emotions and negative slopes indicating diminishing positive emotions from the entire fitted trajectory over the 4 days prior to the quit day as predictors. In approach 2, we used the entire 4-day trajectory, but examined only the segment of the trajectory that occurred on it, with lapse on the quit day itself, day 0. Thus, the average mean and slope from day -1 were the predictors pulled from this segment. Post-quit first lapse analysis. For the post-quit first lapse analysis, we used a Cox proportional hazard model with time-dependent covariates to determine whether positive emotions experienced each day were associated with a higher likelihood of smoking on the next day. For each participant, a positive emotion trajectory was created that began on the quit day, All available data were used leading up to the first lapse, day 0, day 28, but there were a different number of days leading up to a lapse for each participant. If a participant never lapsed, his per data were censored at day 28. From the trajectory, we specifically extracted the mean and slope of each positive emotion on each day in order to determine whether these values were related to lapsing on the following day. For instance, we examined whether or not positive emotions on day 0 were associated. Positive emotions were associated with lapsing on day 2, etc. We repeated this for all days post-quit. Vinci et al. Page 6. Health Cycle Author Manuscript, available in PMC November 1st, 2018. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. In order to evaluate the goodness of fit, or the relative importance of the happy, relaxed, on their association with first lapse, we used the generalized R-square, GRS, statistic for the Cox model, Allison, 1995. This statistic ranges between 0 and 1 and is larger when the predictors are more strongly associated with the dependent variable, Allison, 1995. Therefore, it can be used as a measure of variable importance and is compared across different models, Hosmer and Lemechow, 1999. However, similar to other goodness of fit metrics, example AIC, and we are not able to determine whether the differences in GRS are statistically significant. Note that the GRS statistic does not have the interpretation of being the proportion of the variation in the data explained by the predictors, Allison 1995, Hosmer and Lemechow, 1999. Additional details, each positive emotion was entered in separate models because our preliminary analyses showed collinearity, RS ranging from 0.39 to 0.65 among these three positive emotions. However, shown in Model 1, we also present results that include both the mean and slope simultaneously in the same model. Model 2, example, mean and slope of happy were entered in the same model, in order to determine whether the mean and slope are unique predictors of cessation, or whether they account for similar effects. In all models, we adjusted for participants' gender, age, partner status, education level, and race/ethnicity. Results. Characteristics of study participants. A total of 400 participate in the study. Of these 434 participants, 396 returned for their baseline visit 1 week prior to their quit date. Of these, 5 individuals did not complete any EMAs during the entire study, and were therefore eliminated from the subsequent analyses, resulting in 391 participants. Participants in quit day lapse analysis. Of the 391 participants, 36 had no pre-quit EMA data during the 4 days prior to quit day. Thus, finding the association of pre-quit positive emotions with quit day lapse was 355. Participants in post-quit first lapse analysis. Of the 391 participants, 14 had no post-quit EMA data, and an additional 4 participants were dropped from the analyses due to having no follow-up in-person visits, and therefore smoking status was unable to be biochemically confirmed. Of the remaining 373 participants, 133 individuals lapsed on quit day. These 130 but were dropped from the first lapse analysis. Thus, the total number of participants included in the first lapse post-quit analyses were the remaining 240 individuals who lapsed beyond quit day. Table 1 presents information for the pre- and post-quit participants who were included in the primary analyses on the variables of age, gender, income, employment, education, race/ethnicity, cigarettes smoked per day, and time to first cigarette upon waking in the morning. Vinci et al. Page 7. Health Cycle Author Manuscript, available in PMC November 1st, 2018. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Author Manuscript. Compliance with EMA. When examining the pre-quit phase only, participants completed 77.7% of random assessments over the monitoring period. When examining the post-quit phase only, participants completed 76.1% all completed random assessments, 88% were completed immediately upon receiving the prompt. Primary findings. Quit day lapse. Results from the logistic regressions examining quit day lapse using the pre-quit positive emotions trajectories. Both approaches 1 and 2 showed no significant associations. Post-quit first lapse. Table 2 presents the hazard ratios of the mean and slope of positive emotions on each day as they related to first lapse on the next day. Higher mean levels of happiness relapsing on the next day in both models 1 and 2. For example, for each unit of increase in happiness, ranged from 1 to 5, the hazard of lapse on the next day is reduced by 35%. Hazard ratio equals 0.65 in Table 2, Model 1. Hence, a participant with the lowest happiness score of 1 would have an approximately 5.6 times 1 slash 0.65, 5 minus 1 equals 5.6, higher risk of lapsing on the next day than a participant with the highest happiness score of 5. Enthusiastic, happy, and relaxed were significantly associated with a lower risk of lapse on the next day in both models 1 and 2, indicating that more rapid increases in positive emotions are associated with lower risk of next day lapse. Results from the GRS should also be noted. For example, in Model 1, when both the mean and slope are significant, the mean appears to be more important for happy than relaxed, as indicated by a higher GRS. In Model 2, all three have emotionally higher value. Of note, the hazard ratios are similar between the results of models 1 and 2, suggesting that the effects of the mean and slope are largely unrelated. In fact, the correlations between mean and slope are very low and non-significant for all three positive emotions. Enthusiastic equals 0.02, happy equals 0.12, relaxed equals minus 0.03. Thus, the mean and slope capture different aspects of the effects of positive emotions on next day lapse. Additional considerations: 37 participants did not report lapsing during an EMA, but were considered lapsed at a subsequent visit due to either self-reported lapse during the visit, N equals 19, CO level 10 ppm, N equals 9, or both self-reported lapse and CO 10 ppm, N equals 9. Thus, a sensitivity analysis was conducted to determine whether excluding these 37 participants would impact the findings. When excluded, the results were largely consistent with our findings in Table 2 lapse in Table 2 Model 1, and the slope of happiness in Table 2 Model 2 were no longer significant in the sensitivity results. Discussion. The current study demonstrated that among a racially/ethnically diverse sample of smokers making a quit attempt, positive emotions during the pre-quit period were not related to quit day lapse. This finding is consistent with prior research, Bisnell et al., 2014, Doran et al., Vinci et al., page 8. Health Psych. Author 2018. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. 2006. However, after quit day, positive emotions were associated with first lapse on the following day. Specifically, having higher levels of happiness and relaxation, as well as increasing levels of enthusiasm, happiness, and relaxation, was linked to a lower likelihood of next day lapse. These findings highlight the importance of positive situations such as quitting smoking, consistent with several conceptual models. Fredrickson, 1998, Fredrickson, 2004, Gautre et al., 2001, and are some of the first real-time, real-world data to demonstrate that distinct positive emotions, such as happiness, may be relevant for smokers attempting to quit. Our findings begin to address calls for additional research directly comparing happiness to other discrete positive emotions, Pressman and Cohen, 2005, as well as for examining the Association Bell, 2015. Although our range of positive emotions was very limited, the results aligned with prior research indicating that positive emotions are associated with behavior change, including smoking cessation, Alapsi et al., 2004, Castengay et al., 1998, Desteno, 2009, Doran et al., 2006, Leventhal et al., 2008, Wintrich and Haas, 2011, Gautre et al., 2005, and helped move the field forward in several ways. First, i.e., the mean, as well as changes in these emotions over the course of the day, i.e., the slope, are uniquely related to the likelihood of lapse. That is, both having higher mean levels of happiness and increases in happiness throughout the day are related to a lower risk of lapsing. Although this study presents some of the first research examining the role of discrete positive emotions during a quit attempt, prior work has investigated the role of discrete emotions on various behavioral outcomes outside the health behavior literature. For instance, when examined close to happy or neutral, were more likely to engage in prosocial behaviors, Desteno et al., 2010. When participants felt pride, they were more likely to persevere on a task than those who did not feel pride, Williams and Desteno, 2008. These findings suggest that distinct positive emotions have differential relationships with behavioral outcomes. Research on distinct emotions also indicates that the temporal focus of an emotion, past versus present versus positive emotions such as hopefulness and anticipated pride were associated with higher self-control when compared to past/present focused emotions such as happiness and general pride. Future research in smoking cessation should explore not only other discrete emotions, example, gratitude, pride, hopefulness, but also consider how the temporal focus of particular emotions may be related to cessation. Considering that the presence of future-focused positive emotions related, such emotions may be particularly relevant during the cessation process. Second, our analytic approach allowed us to take advantage of all post-quit assessments of positive emotions for each participant, even though we focused on the associations of the current day's emotions with next day lapse. Existing analytic approaches, such as using simple parametric models to fit linear or quadratic shapes, are unlikely to fit every participant's data well. To address this methodological challenge, we used penalized spline models to provide a data-driven, positive. Vinci et al. Page 9. Health Cycle author manuscript, available in PMC November 1st, 2018. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Emotion items regarding their relative association with lapse. We used the GRS statistic as the metric. This statistic allows us to evaluate and compare the importance of variables across models. Statistically significant. From this perspective, our finding that happiness is related to a lower likelihood of lapse when compared to the other two emotions should be interpreted as exploratory. Third, our findings indicated that recent positive emotions, across either the entire 4-day pre-quit period or the day immediately preceding the quit day, were not associated with quit day lapse, suggesting that positive emotions experienced prior to making an attempt to quit are not as influential as positive emotions experienced during the quit attempt itself, i.e., relevant. A possible explanation for this finding is related to the difference in smoking behavior in the pre- versus post-quit periods. In pre-quit, participants maintain regular smoking behavior and thus should not be experiencing withdrawal symptoms or general distress due to an active quit attempt. Therefore, pre-quit positive emotions may be less related to quit day lapse because smoking behavior has not changed. During the post-quit period, smokers are experiencing withdrawal. Thus, distress during this time period. Similar to our findings, some previous research has found that post-quit variables tend to be more highly associated with smoking outcomes than our pre-quit variables. For example, pre-quit self-efficacy has a weaker relationship with lapse than does post-quit self-efficacy, Waltney, Metrick, Kaler, and Schiffman, 2009, and our findings suggest that positive emotions may follow a similar pattern. In light of the present findings, future research might focus on both testing increasing positive emotions improves the likelihood of remaining abstinent. For example, one useful strategy may be mindfulness. Mindfulness, the ability to purposefully attend to the present moment without judging thoughts/emotions/sensations as good or bad, has been associated with higher positive effects. Davidson et al., 2003, Jane et al., 2007, Tang et al., 2007, lower nicotine dependence, Vidrine et al., 2009, Vinci et al., 2016, and lower Bowen, Mallet, Thornhill, and Brewer, 2013, Westbrook, Creswell, Savignia, Jolson, Kober, and Tyndall, 2011. Although smoking cessation treatments have utilized mindfulness-based interventions to effectively reduce smoking behavior, example Brewer et al., 2011, Davis, Goldberg, Anderson, Manley, Smith, and Baker, 2014, Davis. Fleming, Bonus, and Baker, 2007, Vidrine et al., 2016. Continued research. Understand the role of positive emotions within these interventions, and to determine whether certain mindful activities directly target positive emotions. Behavioral activation, a commonly used treatment for depression, might be another potential approach. In a randomized controlled trial for smokers reporting mild levels of depression, a behavioral activation treatment incorporated the engagement of positive activities during the cessation process, McPherson et al., 2010. Results indicated that participants who underwent the behavioral 26-week follow-up period and reported fewer depressive symptoms when compared to an active control treatment group. Unfortunately, ratings of positive emotions were not reported. Therefore, we do not know whether engagement in positive activities actually led to higher. Vinci et al. Page 10. Health Cycle author manuscript, available in PMC November 1st, 2018. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Positive emotions, resulting in increased abstinence. Future research should determine whether the incorporation of positive activities into treatment actually increases positive emotions, leading to increased cessation. Limitations of the present study should be noted. First, this study consisted of individuals interested in quitting smoking. As such, the results may not apply to individuals with lower levels of motivation to quit. Second, the current study is active, happy, and relaxed. Other positive emotions, example, pride, gratitude, hopefulness, that have been differentially associated with behavior should be incorporated into future studies examining discrete positive emotions on health outcomes, including smoking cessation. Third, although a definite strength of the study, utilizing EMA has some limitations, including the self-report nature of EMA, issues with reactivity, example, the act of self-monitoring changing behavior, and concerns about non-compliance, example. Our data suggests that participants were generally compliant with the EMA procedures. In conclusion, this study presents some of the first findings demonstrating that discrete positive emotions, collected via EMA, were related to smoking lapse. Additionally, the examination of discrete positive emotions on cessation milestones, such as quit day lapse and first lapse, is practically non-existent, making these results innovative and useful to the tobacco literature. That said, additional research is needed to replicate these findings. Understanding how certain variables, example, discrete positive emotions, are related to lapse during the cessation process has the ability to inform treatment development. Future research should examine how to enhance these positive emotions through treatments such as behavioral activation and mindfulness. References: Al-Awsiyam, Hatsukami D., Davis G.L., Whitmers L.A. Prospective examination of effects of smoking abstinence on cortisol and withdrawal symptoms as predictors of early 2004, 73:267-278. PubMed 150365549, Allison, PD, Survival Analysis Using the SAS System, A Practical Guide. SAS Institute Inc., 1995. Baker, T.B., Morse, E., Sherman, J.E. The Motivation to Use Drugs, A Psychobiological Analysis of Urges. In Rivers, C., Editor. Nebraska Symposium on Motivation, 1987. Pages 257 to 323. Baker T.D., Hyperme, McCarthy D.E., Majeski M.R., Fiore M.C., Addiction Motivation Reformulated, An Effective Processing Model of Negative Reinforcement. Psychological Review. 2004, 111, 133, 51. PubMed, 1475654, Bowen S., Marla A., Surfing the Urge, Brief Mindfulness-Based Intervention for College Student Smokers. 2009, 23:666-671. PubMed, 2002537. Brewer J., Malak S., Babuscio T.A., Niche C., Johnson P., DeLeon C.M., Ramsabel B.J. Mindfulness. Training for smoking cessation, results from a randomized controlled trial. Drug and alcohol dependence. 2011, 119:7280. PubMed, Kenzer D.E., Reitzel L.R., Costello T.J., Copterworkle L., Lee Y., Wetter D.W. Mechanisms linking socioeconomic status to smoking cessation, a structural equation modeling approach. Health Psychology. 2010, 29:262-273. PubMed, 2049690. Vinci et al., page 11. Health Psychol author manuscript, available in PMC November 1st. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. Author manuscript. This Snell M.S., Maki, Kenzer D.E., Reitzel L.R., Chen M., Lam C.Y., Wetter D.W. Predicting Quit Attempting Among Homeless Smokers Seeking Cessation Treatment, an Ecological Momentary Assessment Study. Nicotine and Tobacco Research. 2014, 16:1371, 1378. 2. Casting ALG, Pingus AL, Address WS, Hines CE. The role of emotion in group cognitive behavioral therapy for binge eating disorder, when things have to feel worse before they get better. Psychotherapy Research. 1998, 8:225-238. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.